welcome to Media Lit, where we treat each piece of media like great literature. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me, as always, is my good buddy Chris Ingersoll, one of the only people who wants to dive as deep into literature as I do at all times. Chris, I'm so thankful for you, and how are you tonight?
So good, buddy. Always thrilled to be podcasting with you. And we've got a couple of great properties to discuss, thanks to one of our return podlings. In fact, perhaps the only other person who wants to go as deep on cinema as you do. I'm really thrilled to welcome good friend Bill George back to the podcast, host of the Should I Go See It podcast himself, an avid moviegoer in his own right. Bill, welcome back to Media Lit.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be back. And yeah, we had a blast talking about Heat a year ago, it seems, as we were talking about pre-show. And I'm so excited to be back to dive into some more stuff with you guys. So it's always a fun time.
What is life 1 year ago? Absolutely insane.
Unreal.
Mhm.
Well, in that year, Randy and I have continued to grow. And in season two, we've tried to be better about inviting our guests to plug their own work, their socials up top in the podcast. So tell the folks listening at home where they can find you and all your fantastic work in the world.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. So I would suggest you follow at Should I Go See It on Instagram. That's really where the most of my output comes from. I review movies usually once or twice a week at theaters, and I give you a yes or no on whether that movie is worth going to the theater for, whether you should go see it or not, with a yes or no and a one sentence review. And then, since that's a pretty short form version of a review, in order to expand on that, I do a podcast every other Friday, the Should I Go See It podcast, with my buddy AJ and our producer and friend Craig. And that's available on Spotify and really anywhere you get your podcasts if you search for Should I Go See It. So those would be the main things I would say to check out if you can.
Folks, I cannot highly recommend the companion experience of the Instagram and the podcast together enough because the number of times that I have salivated with anticipation, waiting to listen to the full podcast to discuss the quick 2 sentence review. Sometimes I'm hyped with your
Mhm.
opinion, and sometimes I'm devastated after encountering the yes or the no
Sure.
on Instagram. So I don't think there's a podcast I anticipate more highly than your Friday drop after I've read the yes or the no on Instagram.
Thank you so much. That means the world. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Chris. There's like that little butterfly in the stomach that starts fluttering around when it's a film that you know that you were planning to go and see, and you desperately want it to be a yes.
Yeah.
And listen, you've never steered me wrong yet, but yeah, to see that no on a property I was hopeful for is a huge bummer. But also something that might drive me back to the movies. So,
Yeah. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
and we really appreciate you. Clearly one of our most knowledgeable guests on film that we could pull in. Um, Now, folks, when we are networking and talking to our friends and inviting people on Media Lit, we talk about looking at media as if it were great literature, and usually that's as simple as picking a property and diving deep. But we encourage our guests to pitch very special episodes. We've had many, especially in season two, a lot of really cool concepts that have gone through, whether it was interpreting WrestleMania or comparing Batman, the animated series, against my adventures with Superman. And Bill George came to us with a great combo of Christopher Nolan films, one of his earlier films, Memento, and then, of course, the sensation that was Oppenheimer. So, Bill, I was hoping to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about why you thought it might be intriguing to look at these two selections from Nolan's filmography together.
So Christopher Nolan is my favorite director, bar
Hmm.
none. And I knew someday when I came back to Media Lit, I had to do a Nolan movie. And I actually had people in my life that were shocked that I didn't pick Nolan the first time. But so I was like, okay, what am I going to pick? And trying to pick, I was looking at the filmography and trying to pick one Nolan movie was basically impossible. But I also couldn't do an episode on all his movies. So I was like, all right, what are we going to do here? And I went to Memento first because that is I have often cited as my favorite movie, which is a question I hate to answer, but if I'm forced to answer against my will, I'll say Memento. And it's also a little maybe lesser known for some people, so it'd be cool to shine a spotlight on it. And then I was thinking about the fact that, well, he just won Best Picture for Oppenheimer. So I was kind of just thinking about it, and I realized the amount of overlap there is between structure and use of
Hmm.
color, which I'm sure we'll dive into. And then it just came to me was why don't we do Nolan then and now so we can talk about how he has evolved as a filmmaker and how far he's come. And it gives us a chance to talk about all the Nolan in between, like I wanted to. And it gives us a chance to get hyped for the Odyssey, which may end up being his true like magnum opus. We'll see. So that's how I got there. Started with Memento and then kind of worked my way up and saw the connection and said, why don't we dive into that?
Yeah,
Brilliant,
Bill.
man.
Yeah, Bill, we're recording this like just shortly after I returned back to my teaching job. So
Hmm.
every time I look over and see that Odyssey book on the shelf, I've been salivating just a little bit, waiting to see what this
Hmm.
Christopher Nolan take is going to look like next summer. I won't just be excited for summer vacation next year. It's going to be the summer of the Odyssey for me. Win or lose. I'm trying not to bring as much hope as Chris had for Superman this past summer. Like I'm trying to leave myself some room to land the plane, but I can't deny that my hopes are high. Uh,
Big time, big
yeah.
time.
So are Tom Holland's.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we dive any deeper into this property, I like to give a signature synopsis. This is where I give our listeners a window into the strange inner workings of my mind. I sometimes go needlessly deep, but with two big and complex properties tonight, that kind of freed me up to try to keep things a little bit broader, a little bit more focused on themes, so that I'm not reading for the next 20 minutes. So I think there might be a few more things that you guys want to fill in the blanks for, or maybe if I come in too hard with a take on a character, feel free to jump in with an alternate take or a way you want to soften or adjust that, or yes and etc. So here we go. I'm just going to do them back to back, and then I'll see what you think, or if any of those comparisons are already starting to pop up. All right. So our first property, going back to 2000, 2001, is Memento. Leonard Shelby is a wandering amateur investigator who lost the ability to form new memories after sustaining brain damage during a home invasion. His last quote unquote reliable memory is his knowledge of his wife's death. Each time he wakes up in a new situation, he falls back on an instinctual system of notes, including tattoos across much of his body, in order to investigate the murder. We come to understand that he is being preyed upon and used by most of the people who stick around in his life. Ultimately, we learn that his future hinges on one key decision that might break him out of this cycle, but viewers are left to imagine his fate. And then more recently, we have Oppenheimer from 2023. J. Robert Oppenheimer is a theoretical physicist eager to push the boundaries of the physical world as we know it. Armed with brilliance, charm, and hubris, he pushes his colleagues, his friends, and his enemies to the very precipice of the universe. As his illusion of control slips from his fingers, he is devoured by the consequences of his actions. Eventually, he martyrs himself before a kangaroo court orchestrated by his political opponent. Years later, his sacrifice wins enough hearts and minds to deliver some karmic payback and even restore his legacy. Unfortunately, he remains haunted by the apocalyptic chain reaction he helped set loose upon the world. So there you have it. Memento, Oppenheimer. I would love to hear your yes ands or well actuallys. What do you got for me?
I was wondering how you were going to tackle the synopses for this. I was like really thinking about that today. I'm like, I wonder what he's going to do for this. I thought you did a nice job. I thought Oppenheimer was spot on.
Mm,
And Memento, I appreciated that you did stick more to theme and character versus structure because so often
Hmm.
it's just referred to as the movie that's backwards or like a gimmick
mm.
movie. So I
Yep.
appreciated that you didn't lean into that and instead focused on the content. So nice job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it was lacking cheek in a nice way because both of these films are, I mean, like dead serious in their own right, but such serious acts of of cinema as art form. And so I think you treated there was like a real reverence in both synopses. What I really liked in the Oppenheimer synopsis, though, was where you mentioned both his friends and his enemies. You phrased it in such a way that like gave me this. It immediately brought to mind the way in which this film wrestled with his individuality and his
Mm.
participation in a much larger sphere of influence. Right? You managed to capture that really well with that one little phrase.
Mm.
I'm also fresh off my watch 1 hour ago, so it's top of
Oh,
mind.
oh boy.
Well, thank you both for those really kind words. I'm glad I captured some of the things that really mattered, and now we can dig into the more of those nitty-gritty details. But first, Kris, I think we need to transition over to some personal connections. Do you want to kick us off there?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's the heart and soul of what we do at Media Lit. Before we can really do the literary stuff, we got to talk about the feeling stuff.
Mhm.
Bill, you already gave us a little bit of your kind of Nolan background, and as you walked us through your conceptualization of this episode tonight, but tell me, what's like your real Nolan origin story? What's that first film you saw? And in your mind, when does Nolan become Nolan?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I actually have this like vivid core memory from
Mm.
childhood of being in my backyard in Reading, Massachusetts. And I had a pool growing up, so my house was the place to be. And my high school friends were over and we're hanging in the pool chatting. And my buddy, shout out Colin, said, "Hey, I saw this cool movie the other day. It's called Memento. And it's about this guy who has a memory issue. So the only way he's able to remember things is he tattoos messages to himself on his body." And I just remember my head exploded. I was like, "What?" Like it was the coolest concept I had ever heard. And at the time, I was a teen, kind of really starting to explore cinema. And I was like, I have to see this movie. So I saw it. It was incredible. I bought the DVD and like wore it out. And so Nolan was on my radar like starting then. And then Insomnia came out, his second film, and I really dug it. It's not a perfect movie, but it's got great moments and you can kind of see his directing chops on display. It's just really well put together. And then Batman Begins comes out, and I'm sitting there going, a Batman movie from the guy that did Memento. And so that was like the holy shit moment where Nolan became
Hmm.
my guy, was basically with Begins. And then follows it with The Prestige, which I almost picked for this episode because The Prestige is so rich to talk about.
Hmm.
And then he follows that with The Dark Knight, his masterpiece, and the rest kind of is history. So for me, it was really Memento was the starting block. And then Batman Begins is when like Nolan became Nolan capital N. So that's kind of my story.
Absolutely love that you were on this from the jump, so much so that by like his third major film, you were a Nolan head, capital
Oh, big
N
time. Yeah,
Nolan
big
head,
time.
ready to rock the merch. For the
Hmm.
podlings at home, Bill is currently in his "In Nolan We Trust" t-shirt. He came dressed for the occasion.
This t-shirt I only wear on opening day of Nolan movies or right now. Like this is just in the closet for special occasions.
I'm honored. I'm honored. Randy, what about you, man? When did you start with Nolan? When does he become Nolan for you?
Yeah, so in terms of the origin story, I've spoken many times on this podcast about my Rubbermaid bins that I would bring back and forth to college with me, just brimming with CDs and DVDs for years and years. But as I was going back, I know Memento was my first Nolan movie. I can not remember who introduced me to the film. Like, I don't know if I picked it up on my own. I don't know if I read about it somewhere. More likely than not, a roommate from my past told me it was great and I watched it. But my memory begins with it just sort of magically appearing on my college DVD shelf, like your very basic college guy,
Mhm.
early 2000s DVD shelf, alongside such classics as The Crow. I think I talked about this particular DVD case back when we talked with Amanda Rivas about The Crow. Um, right up there next to Memento in The Crow, I'm seeing like, yeah, I'll admit it, the Boondock Saints. Um,
Had to have it. That's a
you had
classic.
to have the Boondock Saints. Donnie Darko was up there.
Yep.
Some silly comedies. I had my Zoolander
Sure.
up there. But yeah, like Memento, it was like that movie that was like in the top tier of movies to show someone for the first time in college. And it felt
Hmm.
like this real sort of social currency to be able to introduce someone to the film. Because unless you were a really serious film student, especially at a time when films were a little bit less accessible, you know, if you're going to oversimplify Memento, you would call them gimmicks. But to see these really creative narrative choices, I
Mm.
think a lot of us saw that type of creativity for the first time in this film, even before we maybe knew the history of filmmaking. So that's it for me. But weirdly enough, despite how much I loved Memento, I hadn't quite evolved to my like reverence for the auteur phase yet. So like Christopher Nolan was not Christopher Nolan to me. It didn't fully come together that he mattered so much as an individual until Inception came out.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, because just like it was such a great movie overall, but like just the wildly imaginative visuals really struck a chord with me. And I do not have a copy of it. Um, if any of my former students somehow stumble upon this podcast and listen to it, ironically or seriously, I was in a student video inspired by Inception. And in the video, the students were incepting me. So like they brought like a little like briefcase and like hooked stuff up to me. And that got me thinking about Inception more and more. That's when Christopher Nolan became Christopher Nolan for me. I was like, okay, this guy has built something big here and he's going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic. Love that that you got to work your students into this. I can't believe you were already into your teaching career when Inception dropped.
I'm an old man, Chris.
um, for me, it's fairly similar to you, Randy, somewhere kind of in between because I did see Memento really early on. I caught Memento like 2003, it was my sophomore year of high school. I was in a photography class. We had this fantastic photography teacher, Miss Sweegle. Shout out to Sweegs. And she introduced this film to us then. And I remember being blown away by it. Like I was too
Hmm.
young to really appreciate it. It was more like it was, you could like tell it was something, even if I wasn't intellectually ready to really appreciate all that it was offering. You could just tell it's something from the beginning.
Yep.
But I didn't associate that film with Christopher Nolan at all. I didn't walk away from that being like, I got to watch out for this Nolan gentleman in the future, right? Like the
Hmm.
idea of myself, even as a film head, wasn't really happening yet. So then you get Batman. Batman Begins is the first time I know Christopher Nolan's name. And I
Yeah.
don't associate that with the guy who made Memento at all. Not in the least. That connection
Yep.
wouldn't come until much, much later. So he just made the best Batman movie I'd ever seen, right? And then Dark Knight comes out, and wow, I had seen The Prestige. I'm impressed, but again, I'm still not like enough of a tuned in guy to be paying attention to like. So Nolan did that, and I like all these things this Nolan guy does. Am I a Nolan fan?
Mm.
Like you, Randy, wasn't until Inception. So The Dark Knight has established him. At this point, if anybody has any questions about his artistic ability or his commercial viability, they've been
Yeah.
dispelled on the other side of the Dark Knight, right? So Inception is the moment where I remember anticipating this next big Nolan project. Oh my gosh, Capital N Nolan has another film coming out. Look at this cast. Look at these visuals. Um, and it felt like this cultural event that the next
Hmm.
Nolan film was coming out. And up to that point, I hadn't identified that yet, even if true film heads like a Bill George were already on the wave. So yeah, I'm
Mm.
with you, Randy. Inception changed it all and made him, I like what you said, Bill, capital N
Yeah.
Nolan.
Yeah, that Inception trailer, first movie coming off Dark Knight, the trailer with the spinning hallway and the first like broom, like that definitely
Hmm.
became, like you said, a cultural event that put him there for sure.
Wow. The
Or
suits.
solidified it, I should say.
Perfect. Well, I hope we've all established pretty well that all three of us here are pretty big Christopher Nolan fans, like big fans of this guy's work. But as part of the class here on Media Lit is we've got to try to bring a critical eye even to the things that we love as well. So despite the fact that we all love Christopher Nolan, I thought it might be worthwhile just to like take a moment to recognize what some of the criticisms are that people occasionally will levy at Christopher Nolan. I'm not suggesting that we have to even agree with them, but what are some of these criticisms? And do you have any sense of like where people are coming from? Do you agree with any of these criticisms to any extent, or perhaps you don't agree with them, but but maybe there's something you'd love to say to someone with these criticisms, or another perspective you'd love to have people to consider to bring to these criticisms. Bill, I'm going to start with you. Nolan's your favorite
Okay.
director,
All
so I'm
right.
sure you are aware of, again, he's not like a huge punching bag or anything, but if you're up on top, it doesn't matter if you're Christopher Nolan or Taylor Swift, someone's going to take a shot at some point.
Sure.
So what do you got for me?
I mean, we got to talk about the dead wife thing. Like
Hmm.
we got to front door it.
Yeah.
It always
Yeah.
comes up. So Memento, the lead is trying to get revenge for his dead wife. Prestige, the lead's trying to get revenge for his dead wife. Dark Knight, the lead wants revenge for his dead girlfriend. Inception, the lead is haunted by his dead wife. Interstellar, the lead has a dead wife off rip. So like I get it. I get that it's a concern. That being said, for me, having
Yeah.
the skewed perspective of being a guy,
Hmm.
like it doesn't bother me as much, mostly because I very much like compartmentalize a lot of things,
Yeah.
especially in Hollywood. Like Tom Cruise is my favorite actor. Like I separate art from artists. I'm very good at compartmentalization. And that's the same
Yeah.
thing with these movies. Like I think about how the movie makes me feel
Yeah.
when I'm watching it. And in every case, it works. Now, if you take a step back and try to look holistically, like I get it, there is that pattern there. And would I appreciate if he kind of invested more in writing female characters? 100%. That'd be great. Um, but so I do understand that that is a criticism for sure. And if I look big picture, I see it as well. But again, at any given moment when I'm just watching a Nolan movie, it doesn't bother me. So kind
Yeah.
of that's like the biggest one. And then I do have some critiques within specific movies. Not many. I think most of his movies are damn near perfect.
Hmm.
Um, but I got a couple criticisms here and there. I don't know if we want to go into like the super in-depth stuff, but if you're thinking about Nolan's career, that obviously is kind of the biggest one that comes up.
Yeah, for sure. So before we hear more, Chris, did you have any thoughts in mind? Any criticisms that get levied at Christopher Nolan from time to time?
I was going to go right there because I think some of the other criticisms that do get levied at him, whether or not it's concerning like uh, the exposition, it's the complexity of some of his films.
Mhm.
Um, I think he's accused sometimes of like favoring plot dynamics and structure
Yep.
over character development. That stuff doesn't bother me. To
Yep.
Bill's point, he makes movies that work. I think Christopher Nolan succeeds in making exactly the movie that he intends to make every time he makes a film. And in that way, it's hard to critique it. You might disagree, you may not prefer, you may not be as engaged or as entertained, but I think he's succeeding in doing what he wants to do every time. I don't think he ever watches one of his movies and says, not quite what I was going for there. So those things don't bug me. And to Bill's point, generally speaking, like, so he's not that imaginative in what motivates a man. Doesn't ruin the movies. I would
Hmm.
say it's probably driven from the idea that like he wants to imagine a guy who's both emotionally driven and yet also free to move in the world, which
Hmm.
like to make big decisions and take big actions, which like when you're a family man, you or you have any kind of like a real life partner, you're not as apt to do, right? You're not going to be as
Mm.
interesting a character when you're like living your life cautiously because of a partnership, like a life you share with somebody else. However,
That's an
there's
excellent
one
point. First of all, I do want to say excellent point.
Yeah, yeah.
one really glaring moment in his fridging tendencies, his fridging history, where it did ruin the movie for me. It damn near ruined the franchise.
Yeah.
There's a reason why The Dark Knight is not my favorite Batman movie, despite being one of my favorite films of all time.
Mm.
And it's because of the invention and inclusion of the Rachel Dawes character. Bill, you just claimed that the character in The Dark Knight is motivated by the death of his girlfriend. Batman has classically not needed motivation since his parents died in an alley when he was a child.
You're right. You are right.
Nolan goes out of his way to motivate a classically motivated character with the fridged female companion. And that to me is damn near unforgivable. It almost breaks up Batman and Alfred in a permanent sense.
Right.
She's so damn important to this character, so motivating for that character. She jeopardizes the mission, which nothing jeopardizes the mission. For Batman, no emotional connection. So I will never forgive him for that.
Yeah.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and I'm mostly going to yes and both of you in terms of like uh people making accusations as to the like the gimmicky nature of a film, right? Like I'm looking ahead at my outline. I'm going to go into more depth on this one in a minute. Uh, Nolan brings you a lot of things. He gives you genuine human emotion. Sometimes he gives you puzzle boxes and intricate, jigsaws that you have to piece together. But I think that's part of the engagement of a Nolan film. And if you don't want to sign up for that, I think that's okay. I don't think that has to make it an indictment of the entire body of work, right?
Mhm.
I think if you love Nolan, that's one of the things that you love about him. And I think if you're willing to look past that, there's a lot below. I was also going to talk about female characters in Nolan movies, having some room for growth. But I would say, we've seen some slow burn growth. We're going to be talking about Oppenheimer. I think we'll probably talk a lot about Kitty tonight. Is there room for her to have more rounding out? I think there is, but she's also presented to us as a very confident character, someone who's very sure of herself. She has one or two of the most powerful moments in the entire film. And I'm, you know, particularly excited with the Odyssey to see what kind of a Penelope we get. Um, that's a character who could be easy to present as just being trapped. Um, and I would love to see him really find a way to empower that character. So that's going to be one of my things I'm really interested in the Odyssey. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is a great creator. The only other thing I wanted to just throw back at you, um, recently I was going to the movies and I had a first time experience. I was in AMC, right? I got
Mhm.
through all my commercials. I got through Nicole. I'm ready for the movie to start, and then
30 minutes later.
a new trailer pops
Yeah.
in, uh, and it's for the Odyssey. And you've got like this special like post trailer release for the Odyssey. And I was excited when I realized what it was for. I was a
Sure.
little bit confused. But I heard one or two rumblings of people who found it like a little bit obnoxious, like how much time and attention went to this 1 year sort of preview. I had a great time with it. Um, but is there anything? I'm trying to pick my words carefully here. I don't want to say like pompous, but like I think that's a vibe that a detractor might kind of give. Like we've pushed this project to be held up on a pedestal a year before it's even released. What would you say to someone who was concerned about that? Just all that sort of like extra oomph and attention onto this project.
I would say he's earned it.
Yeah,
And I think that the people in those seats uh helped him earn it. Like when you
yeah.
make $700 or $800 million on an original movie about dreams, like clearly there is a hunger for what he is putting out, and he's made billion-dollar movies, grossing movies. So he's earned that cachet within the industry because he's done so much to help the industry that
Hmm.
if we want to like put a little special emphasis on his next project, I think he's earned it.
Yeah.
But again, that's coming from a hardcore Nolan fan
Oh
over here.
yeah.
So sure. Take it for what you will.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to hear that kind of a criticism from somebody. I think that it's for some reason I think we tend to want humility out of our heroes, right? And when
Yeah.
somebody seems a little too high in their own supply, I think James Gunn is facing that a little bit right now. He's like on
Mm.
top of the world
Hmm.
in on the other side of Superman, and I've heard some critiques of his media presence recently. Like he's a little too cocky out there. But I think that's what it's earned. When it's earned, it's not something that to really critique. And I don't think like in James Gunn's case, I don't think it is cocky. I think he's genuinely excited and
Yeah.
he's genuinely successful. And I think to your point, Bill, not that I think Christopher Nolan is out there being cocky with something like this, but he definitely has a sense of his own importance as a filmmaker now.
Mm.
He's certainly aware that he is capital N Nolan, and that comes with certain privileges, a certain amount of attention. Um, I don't know that his interest in the Oppenheimer character has any parallels to his own sort of ascendance as like this
Sure.
figure in cinema. Like Oppenheimer was a figure in science, right? Like one
Hmm.
who we look to for influence. But you couldn't fault him if he did. If somebody came to me with these critiques, despite being able to understand maybe where it comes from, because you do sometimes want your heroes to be humble, I
Yeah.
would say like you're just being a hater.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're just being a
that's being
hater.
contrarian. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you can't simply understand that this person is successful and therefore they get
Yeah.
attention, therefore they get special treatment, you're just being a hater.
Yeah.
I also doubt that it's Nolan saying like I demand that my trailer be put whatever.
Right.
It's the AMC and Warner Brothers or sorry, he left Warner Brothers, whoever it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever studio it is. It's them knowing that hey, this guy makes movies that gross $1 billion. We're going to make sure that everybody knows that this thing's coming out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Especially now at a time when we're just trying to resuscitate the cinema, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just breathing life back into this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I love both of those responses. And I think if we want cinema and film to be more than just counting box office receipts,
Mm.
it's a business. I know we can't ignore that. But I think people who love movies would generally agree they want it to be more than just that. Like we need these visionaries and these auteurs and give them a little bit of space to operate, let celebrate some of the stuff as long as it is in the interest of getting people back in theaters and bringing us new art. So, guys, we've taken the Band-Aid off. We are now cleared to go into like free Christopher Nolan love mode. What do we love about these
Yes.
films and this creator?
Yeah.
And if you have any trepidation about Christopher Nolan, we'd love it if you listen to why we love him so much. So take it away.
Well, let's just jump right into the films. I want to talk a little bit about Memento.
Yeah.
Let's do like a first viewing, last viewing compare. Randy, you haven't gone first yet, so we'll just throw it back to you. How have your
Yeah.
feelings changed? You mentioned that Memento was big for you in college, so how have your feelings changed since those early viewings versus this most recent one?
Yeah. It impressed me then. It impresses me now. I think the the camera work, the creative narrative structure were things I hadn't seen before. I think that was enough to sustain me back in the day. And I'm sure I reflected on some of what this film had to say about memory and identity. But watching it now, almost 20 years into a teaching career, all that thematic stuff about memory, about identity, it resonates me on this whole deeper level. Um, you know, yes, there is a little bit of this like revenge porn element to Memento that feels of a slightly different time that I don't necessarily love as much, but the depth to the story and the structure here just really blows my mind. I'm always dropping my curriculum books. Nope, I've got no Great Gatsby for you, Chris, but I've got the things they carried, right? Um, that is an entire book of short stories about Vietnam that basically suggests that you can't really trust memories, that you need fiction to capture the truth of a story. That's what's happening in Memento. Um, at the end of this movie, I don't think we know a single thing definitively about Leonard. We have so many reasons to distrust everyone. I think my like multiple choice correct answer would be that like yes, it was Leonard's wife who was diabetic all along, but you could make just as strong a case that that was just another lie from Teddy. There are so many layers of lies and deception and what matters and what doesn't. I love the fact that we really don't know anything 100% definitively. And yeah, it makes this a really great morality tale. Like, do our actions matter? Does something matter because you remember it or because it left an impact on other people? Like, these are some of the biggest questions in the universe. So I would say my love for the movie only grew.
Not surprised that you've matured into a greater love for such a great film. Bill, what about you? How has this changed for you since you were such a young lad taking this one in?
Pretty much the same as Randy shared. Like I loved it when I first saw it. I love it even more now. When I first saw it, it was more about the puzzle box, and I thought that the whole purpose of the movie was to be weird and different, and like that was
Hmm.
cool, and that was enough for me. But now when I watch it, I see so much more in terms of storytelling, human emotion, human condition. It just has a lot more heart when I watch it now, that it's not just a neat puzzle box movie. It's beyond that. And I think it took me aging and going through life and bringing more
Hmm.
to my viewings to kind of understand that. And when we get to our favorite quotes section, I'll speak to that a whole lot more in depth because I have
Yeah.
definite thoughts on that. But yeah, my evolution is very similar to Randy's, I would say.
Yeah, this I suppose this is the kind of film that every time you watch it, depending on like what you're experiencing in life, you might feel differently about it. Again, to your point, Randy, no character is really nailed down. Like their motivations, their intentions are all
Hmm.
somewhat open to interpretation. They're all mostly empathetic. I'm not sure we ever get real empathy for Teddy, but
Mm.
um yeah, I think that's it's easy to experience this film differently over multiple viewings based on your own emotional state, your own recent experiences. When I first watched this movie, I think I said it before, I was just a doofy kid who just knew this was like, oh, whoa, look at how it goes. It's like backwards, and sometimes it's color, and sometimes it's black and white. And like, could you tell that it was going in reverse? Um, that's all really cool. And I remember like enjoying that and enjoying the dialogue around it. I enjoyed being a part of that kind of a conversation. Like,
Yeah.
it definitely
Mhm.
piqued my interest into what cinematic exploration might look like beyond just like loving the joy and the escapism of films. Um, Now when I rewatched it, I find myself so moved, so emotionally moved by simple looks. Guy Pearce's face. I mean, the performances across the board, but like Carrie Ann Moss is tremendous in this film. There's eye work happening from these two actors that is just like blowing me
Hmm.
away as I'm watching. Um, and then the one I know we'll get more into this, but one thematic thing that really rocked me this time when I'm watching was the idea that you've got these feelings you don't know why.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just living often, anyways. If you're not really doing the work to be introspective and to be reflective, I think often our bodies are full of big feelings that we don't always have names for or total understanding of the source of. And that can be stressful. That can be really anxiety inducing when you have these big feelings and you can't quite put your finger on the why of them. I can't imagine how Leonard is feeling when he's
Mhm.
angry, like ragefully angry, and he doesn't know why. When he wakes up with a deep sense of dread and heartbreak, and it takes him a minute to catch up with life and
Hmm.
remember where those feelings are coming from. That rocked me this time around.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Before we say goodbye to just our personal connections section, obviously, when you look at art like this, it's going to stay personal all night. But just in terms of context and framing, we're talking about Oppenheimer. I feel like I have to bring up the context in which that film was released. There was this phenomenon called Barbenheimer,
Yep.
where this movie and Barbie were released in close succession. I don't fully know exactly when and how that caught on, but we had these two highly anticipated films with clearly wildly different vibes. And I think it started as a joke. Um, but it became a phenomenon because maybe not every moviegoer loved both films, but a lot of people did love both films. And I don't think anyone would disagree that they were both really powerful films in their own right. They had very different goals and styles and target audiences. I think for about a year, I heard people like desperately trying to name like new movie combos, but there was never
Yes.
Yeah.
another one that really worked. And I think people have finally accepted that. I haven't heard anyone try it in a minute. But I've got to ask you guys, I'll start with Chris, since you just gave me the grace of answering first. Uh, did you experience Oppenheimer in the context of Barbenheimer at all?
I didn't see the film back then. So I had the experience of choosing one or the other, and my wife and I went and saw Barbie. Um, so I just watched Oppenheimer for the first time for this very podcast.
This was your first
This was
time?
my first
Oh my
viewing.
goodness.
Listen, sometimes it's tough to find 3 hours to set
Yeah.
aside when you've missed
Yeah.
that movie theater moment.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And my wife isn't a big cinephile. So when we're watching movies, it's very much nostalgia based or like more for shared entertainment rather than like, let's watch this effing movie right now, right? Like, let's have
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
cinematic experience. So yeah, I just haven't had occasion. And so I didn't experience the movie back then, but I very much experienced the moment,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like, part of the question here was like, what was the point of that? Was this just like powerful messaging? Was it just like kind of fun to say Barbenheimer and it was working out kind of in a funny way, or was it something more? And intentionally or not, I do think this was a first salvo in an ongoing effort to resuscitate the cinema experience. I think part of why people have tried to do it again over the last
Hmm.
few years, trying to pair other movies with fun sounding names, is because it made it fun to participate in the movies
Yep.
Yeah.
again, And these weren't, I mean, yes, Barbie's IP, but these weren't like superhero movies, right? These were
Yeah.
two big cinema moments that people were anticipating for different reasons with totally different feels that felt like exercises in cinema and not just exercises in making lots of money.
Yep.
Perfect. Bill, did you experience this in the context of Barbenheimer at all?
No, I got that question a million times when it was happening. It's like, are you gonna watch them back to back? Are you gonna do Barbenheimer? And I actually refused to because I just
Yeah.
knew it wouldn't
Nice.
work for me. Like the way I watch movies, I really get into them. And we didn't know what to expect from Oppenheimer. So I'm like, am I really gonna watch a movie where I may end up watching 100,000 people perish horrifically and then
Mm-hmm.
go see a comedy right after and like try to laugh? Like that doesn't feel right. And it's the
Hmm.
same the opposite. Am I gonna watch Barbie and then I'm gonna go into a movie about Oppenheimer like with the giggles? Like it's not gonna work. It just doesn't make sense. So I prioritized Oppenheimer. I saw that opening night in
Yep.
IMAX, and then I saw Barbie the next day. And yeah, I agree though the moment was very natural versus the ones that came after
Yeah.
and they tried to be forced. And I think it was just a cool moment because so many people were hyped about such different things.
Yeah.
And I think on the surface, people looked at it and said, how these are the most different possible movies. And
Hmm.
yet the Venn diagram of people interested in them, like there's actually a lot of people because when you get a little deeper, it's like, oh, here's a Greta Gerwig movie with Margot
Hmm.
Robbie. What are they
Yeah.
going to do with this? And then here's a Nolan movie about a historical event. This looks great. And if you're a cinephile person, you care about both Greta Gerwig and Christopher Nolan.
Hmm.
And so you have like, I'm excited for both. Like that seemingly seems like a paradox, but it's not at all. And I think people really just dug into that and had fun with it. So I loved
Yeah.
that whole experience.
Yeah, that's perfect. I did not do a pure Barbenheimer. I did see both movies in theaters pretty close together, but it wasn't a single day back-to-back experience. But what I remember from that month is the first time I ever went to the movies alone, it was like by accident. I think I went to see like Captain America Civil War, and like there
Mhm.
was only like one time I could go to see it, and I was like, ah, I'm just gonna go myself before everything gets spoiled. And then I instantly became addicted to going to the movies alone.
It's the
Uh,
best.
it's kind of like my default position now. I still
Mhm.
enjoy going with other people. But what was special about that month was everyone wanted to go to the movies. Like my wife had to see Barbie, and we made a point of going to see it together, and we really loved it. I was able to chat about it with my sisters, friends, cousins. It was fantastic. I think I wound up seeing it two different times, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
Um, and the same thing with Oppenheimer. I am an English teacher. I have a lot of friends who are like English and history teachers, and it was like the first time in ages that I went with a small group to go and experience a movie together and have that conversation about Oppenheimer afterwards. So, not only was it a great movie on its face, but my anticipation to go and share it with people is, something that's become kind of a novelty. The way I take in movies now and the way they're released so quickly, uh, you don't always have time to plan a big outing because things come and go so
Mm.
quickly.
Mhm.
I never got around to my second Superman viewing in theaters, and if they hadn't moved on so quickly, I'd be still trying to go.
Right.
So yeah, I love that event around it. It does make the movies special for sure.
I will also say to be ready for Oppenheimer. This is me just proving my Nolan bona fides a little bit more.
Yeah.
As soon as I found out that his next project was Oppenheimer and it was based on the book American Prometheus, I immediately read the book. And then
Nice.
I also visited Los Alamos. So like
Oh,
when I say I'm
nice.
a Nolan guy, like I mean it.
You visited Los Alamos. You got to give us a quick anecdote. What did you experience when you went
Yeah.
there? What's that like?
It was cool. I mean, there's a bunch of museums about the nuclear program there and White Sands and all that. You got to go to where Nolan's house was, like the compound there. Excuse me, where Nolan's house was, where Oppenheimer's house was. You knew what I meant. So yeah, it was neat. I was going to the Albuquerque, New Mexico area to Santa Fe with a friend, and I was like, I have to visit Los Alamos. Have to got to be ready for this movie. And so it worked out perfectly.
That's
Fan-
perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I have to confess, I still have not read the book, but I'm gonna have to check it out, especially after this most recent viewing.
for sure.
You didn't also go to the Barbie Dreamland before seeing Barbie?
No, no, I missed that one.
Dang. Thank you both for taking the time to get into some of our connections to Nolan, some of our early feelings about these two films. But it's time to get a little bit deeper. It's time to move into the episode as literature, and so we'll start here with you, Bill. But
Sure.
part of the vision for this, your brilliant vision for this episode, was looking at the narrative structures for these two films. Um, how would you say that non-linear storytelling benefits one or the other?
So I'll say it benefits both, and I'll kind of give you briefly why I think for each. I think for Memento, the nonlinear structure allows us to align with Shelby so
Mm,
much more because we're experiencing life the way he does. And so like the perfect example to me is when he gets completely played by Natalie.
Mm,
Like we're not sitting there
hmm
thinking to ourselves, I imagine what it would feel like if she tricked me like that. We're seeing it as Shelby, we get tricked. Like as an audience, it's like I don't have to
hmm
imagine how it would feel. I'm feeling it. Like it puts you in his shoes in a way that no other structure could. And it creates an alignment between the audience and the protagonist that I think is very difficult to achieve otherwise. Um, and it's what makes the ending such a great rug pull when it turns out he's more flawed than we could have possibly
hmm
imagined because we've now spent so much time being aligned with him and his view. So that's what I think of when I think of the memento structure. For Oppenheimer, I think the nonlinear storytelling is what allows for increasing like the pacing of the film.
hmm
Like if you tried to take the key elements of Oppenheimer and tell it in order, the back half of the movie would just be a slog. Like you'd have a
hmm
thrilling first hour of him studying abroad and then him making the bomb, and it'd be great. And then you'd have an hour and a half of just straight depositions.
hmm
Um, and we would be watching the movie being like, why am like cut this? What are we doing? But the depositions add so much to the character and the story. They're essential. So his approach of being able to kind of have his cake and eat it too, where you're able to have those slower scenes, but not completely derail the thrill of the film, is really what makes Oppenheimer work. So I think the nonlinear storytelling was uh, critical for both.
Yeah, really thoughtfully laid out. I agree on both counts, but I'll get into my thoughts after I let Randy
Sure.
respond. Randy, what do you think about the narrative structure here?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more eloquent than what Bill had to say about Memento, right? Like I had kind of a simplified version of what Bill had to say. Like it forces us to investigate. It disorients us a little bit. And I love how Bill brought that another step closer to like how we connect with our central character here. Yeah, in Oppenheimer, you need this disjointed storytelling. I haven't name dropped my guy Kurt Vonnegut in a hot minute, Chris.
Mm,
I imagine you might have been thinking back to our Wailing Shall Be in All Streets episode that digs
hmm
into the morality of total war and
hmm
large scale bombing and the implications of all of that. But I was also thinking of him just in terms of telling a chronological story. My favorite novel of all time is Slaughterhouse-Five, and in the first chapter of that book, Kurt Vonnegut describes all the different times he tried to tell the story of what happened to him chronologically, and that it was impossible to do. At one point, he describes rolling out a roll of, I think it's like wallpaper, and he like draws out a timeline of everything that happened before and after the Dresden bombing. He makes big hash marks where the bombing actually happens, and not everyone survives. And he can't do it until it becomes this disjointed romp through time, and to like land us right in the center at that critical moment with the question of what did he say to Albert Einstein
hmm
as the perfect ending of the movie. It not only gives us all that support in the pacing of the film, but it lands us in the critical moment in this just like solid, structured way that's so perfect.
mm.
And I just want to smuggle in some thoughts on black and white real quick. Those help place us in a different point in time, but in both films, I feel like the black and white sections are the ones that read to me as like the straightest storytelling, where I feel the least like I'm getting a filtered story. I feel like I'm getting something that maybe I'm supposed to take the most at face value. So that was like a nice way, in addition to all this disjointed storytelling. It got me at least thinking about what should I trust and what shouldn't I
Mhm.
trust.
Great
Yeah,
point.
I think that point in the black and white is particularly true in Memento. I think it's
Hmm.
much more probably intentionally so that the black and white, right? It's our straightforward chronological narrative. I do think it's meant to be the more objective experience. I think maybe I'm less convinced in Oppenheimer just because that I do think the black and white is influenced by Strauss's perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
But anywho, uh, you guys both nailed it. I think to your point, Bill, um, the one point I would like to make between the two films is the real contrast between their use of this narrative structure is one's reliance on it more than the other. Memento is
Hmm.
a better film because of it, right? Memento,
Mm.
to your point, Bill, nothing really can engage you in this character's experience quite like this nonlinear storytelling choice, this disorientation that we all experience along with the character. But that film is still an interesting film. You weren't totally sold on the concept because of the puzzle box nature. You were sold on the concept when that friend pitched you in the backyard because this
Mm.
dude lost his memory, has the tattoo on
Yeah.
his body, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? There's a
true.
concept there that still totally works, and it's probably an interesting film that could be made without this brilliant device that helps to bring the
Yeah.
audience more viscerally into it. Whereas I agree with you, Bill. I don't think Oppenheimer works or gets to cover such a broad period of his
Yeah.
life without this device.
Yeah.
It would be so damn boring.
Yeah.
There's unless you're just a huge history head and you're in it for every detail of the deposition. Um, you would probably make this movie more about those first few years, right, Bill? You take it right up to the point where the bomb goes off, and maybe you get some sort of epilogue type feel in the back half of the third act that lets you know where life goes from there. But the film is really going to live in those exciting years. And so I think you said it really well, Bill. He got to have his cake and eat it too. Nolan wanted to tell this whole story.
Yep.
He had something to say all the way to that last White House ceremony for Oppenheimer. He saw it all as one big connected story, one experience, and one worth telling. He doesn't get away with that without
Hmm.
this timey-wimey structure.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And speaking of timey-wimey structures, we made a choice on our podcast episode today to look at an early film in Christopher Nolan's career and then a recent award-winning, highly renowned entry. But that gave us the opportunity to look at both properties with fresh eyes. For instance, I do think my point about black and white is truer in Memento, but because I watched Memento, it got me thinking about that particular narrative in Oppenheimer a little bit differently. So my question for both of you is, did you have any moments like that where you were watching Memento and seeing some shades of the future, something we'd get someday in Oppenheimer? Bill, I'm going to start with you on this one.
There's two things. One is more like bigger picture, and it's funny because you kind of just mentioned it, Randy, before, but I realized that all of Oppenheimer is almost like a 3 hour version of one of the Memento scene transitions. Because like the Memento scene transitions are always uh we see something happen, it ends, we know, and then we like go back and get the missing information
Yeah.
to fill it in. And all of Oppenheimer basically starts with Strauss seeing the look on Albert Einstein's face and assuming what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 hours later, with all the information now filled in, the movie ends on, oh, that's what led to that moment. And it's
Oh,
this,
wow.
amazing moment. And so it feels that the whole movie all of a sudden felt like, oh, this was just one big Memento transition. So that was funny. And then there was also one very specific shot that stood out to me, which was in Memento. There's the shot that kind of blew everyone's mind, at least for me and my friends,
Hmm.
was Sammy Jankis in an institution of some kind, and a
Mm.
character passes by the frame, and it kind of acts as a transition.
Mm.
And as the character passes, as soon as he does, there's a split second where instead of Stephen Tobolowsky, it's Guy Pearce as Leonard Shelby in the chair in the institution, and it adds more to that ambiguity that you talked about, Randy, about this movie. And so I was watching, so like that's just a classic shot that I've thought about my
Mm.
entire life ever since I
Mm.
saw it. And then I was watching Oppenheimer the other night, and they're in one of the colored deposition scenes, and the camera starts to shift to the right, and as a character passes the camera, we
Mm.
go from Oppenheimer clothed to Oppenheimer naked,
Yeah.
Mm.
right as the character passes the camera in the same exact type of motion. as was in that Memento transition. Obviously, the context is different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's such a similar shot concept that he
Hmm.
reused 20 years later. And I forgot that shot existed. So as soon as it started to happen when I was on the rewatch, I was like, oh my God, it's just like the Memento shot. So those two things jumped out at me the most when I was kind of looking at the connection from before to now.
It's such a
Great
perfect,
pull.
yeah,
It's like
that's
a
so perfect.
human film wipe.
Yeah, exactly. Using it
Yeah.
as a wipe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of answer I was daydreaming about when I thought about this question. Chris, how about for you? Did you see any shades of the future when you look back at the past?
Well, I watched Oppenheimer after I rewatched Memento. So I wasn't watching Memento with any thoughts of Oppenheimer other than the anticipation of wondering, because I knew there would be black and white in Oppenheimer. I knew there would be a non-linear story structure involved, but I couldn't appreciate yet what I
Mhm.
was the number of parallels. So for me, when I was watching Oppenheimer, there were more of these handful of thematic parallels that I was surprised to find.
Yeah.
There was a moment where I'm going to spoil my favorite quote, so I don't quite want to say it. Oppenheimer's experience of the world,
Yep.
his very subjective experience of the world as displayed for us in these colored sequences, made me reflect very much on some of Leonard's musings around memory and life experience and
Yeah.
what's true, right? When we're in these deposition scenes, he's being questioned and he's having a hard time remembering exactly what he said. And like, well, we have the transcript. It's like, you dick, if you had the transcript, why don't we just,
Yeah.
you know, uh, it's memory is difficult. Leonard tells us that memory is
Hmm.
unreliable. Facts are what you investigate on, right? And that seemed very present in these deposition scenes for me. I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, I also came at it from that more thematic angle, Chris. I was thinking about some of Teddy's musings on memory and identity. When things are getting particularly tense between Teddy and Lenny. He says, "You wander around, you're playing detective, you're living a dream, kid. A dead wife to pine for, a sense of purpose to your life, a romantic quest that you wouldn't end, even if I wasn't in the picture." Um, and like this is really similar to what Oppenheimer is going through, right? Like you have multiple people throughout this film saying like, "Yeah, but what do you believe? Have you ever looked to see what you believe? Have you looked inside of yourself? Are you willing to go on the record for anything?" This idea that Teddy is so sure that Leonard is never going to stop this quest, right? And we don't ever get that answer, right? Like we get the reverse Polaroid picture. But we don't know what he writes on that photo. We don't know if he burns it. Is he going to write something on that note that might end the cycle? Or is he going to just free himself from Teddy and fall right back into it? I love that we don't really know. Um, that's such a great open question here. But I also think of Strauss. He makes that claim at the end that he's giving Oppenheimer exactly what he wants. Like, even if I wasn't in the picture, he would want to like martyr himself and take credit for this. Like he needs this. Like he's feeding off of it. That's Strauss's reading of Oppenheimer. So that connection was really hitting me hard. And then a really stupid one that I'm not actually arguing this is intentional, but just going back to Memento. Uh, at one point, when Leonard breaks into the apartment, there's like this green lighting fixture in the background. And as an Oppenheimer fan, all I could think of is that green apple
Yeah.
from the
Uh,
opening moments of the movie. So that was just a silly one, but that was there too.
I actually made the same connection with the you're out there playing detective. I was thinking of Oppenheimer. He's kind of out there playing scientist. He's got a problem to
Hmm.
solve that he wants to solve, regardless, he's not thinking about the consequences. So I made
Mm.
the same connection with that
Yeah.
line too.
Man, that green apple had me shook. This is my first time watching the movie, and I hadn't had any spoilers, and so I didn't really know much about the character of Oppenheimer himself. I didn't know
Mm.
what to expect from his ultimate stance on the bomb and the moral implications of it. So when he pulls the bottle of cyanide and he's going to straight up murder his his professor, I thought we were in for a wild ride with a
Yeah.
very psychotic man in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, right.
Wormhole.
Yeah.
You
What a
know,
way to
just
solve that problem.
Hmm.
looking down at the basket, he's like, "There is no wormhole in that apple."
Yeah.
Okay, good comparisons. It's off to a. I knew I was going to enjoy this chat. Let's do some favorites. Uh, Bill, this might be tough for you. You love both of these
I
movies. You love
do. I
Nolan.
do.
Can you give us a favorite scene for each film?
All right, I'm gonna cheat on the Oppenheimer one, and I'll just get that out of
Hmm.
the way first, and then
Okay.
I have an actual answer for no for Memento.
Okay.
Oppenheimer, it's honestly like the first 20 minutes. Like the first 20 minutes of the movie is just like it's magic. Like there's just the quick cutting, the breathtaking montage. He's studying abroad. We're meeting new characters. The music is swelling. There's this
Hmm.
establishing shots with like the quantum effects. Like I had trouble taking notes during it because like I couldn't take my eyes off the screen.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's just magnificent. So like it's not a scene, but it's cut so fast it might as well be. So I'd say the opening 20 minutes of Oppenheimer is like my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah.
we gotta watch movies more often together so we can talk immediately after the movie.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
He's like suddenly tossing wine glasses into the corner, and we just have to piece
Yeah.
together what that means. I love it.
Oh, it's so good. So
Yeah.
like that's totally a cheat because it's not a scene, but that's all I could come up with. Um Memento though, I do have a favorite scene and it's a quiet scene
Mm.
and it's funny when I was a kid, a dumb kid, I thought again this is like a puzzle box thriller. Why is this scene so slow? It's like totally bringing down the pacing. But now I watch the scene and it legitimately makes me cry. And it's when Shelby crashes with Natalie and he's talking out loud to himself in bed
Mm.
and he says, "How can I heal? How am I supposed to
Yeah.
heal if I
Mm,
can't feel time?"
mm,
And he talks about how it wouldn't be so bad if he just knew that she wasn't going to come back, but instead he continually wakes up thinking she's just stepped out of the room and she's still alive. And that idea, when you actually like stop and think about that predicament and what it would be like to suffer a loss like that, but then not be able to feel time and heal is like so powerful
Hmm.
and that it brings tears to my eyes. And like
Hmm.
this is where I bring the pod down a bit. So I apologize in advance for being a bummer. But I lost my mother 6 years ago to pancreatic cancer. And I think about that loss
Hmm.
and how absolutely devastating it was, is, continues to be. And nothing actually helps per se. But the only thing that allows you to go on is the passing of time. And so
mhm,
now when I bring that to the viewing of this movie and I hear the
Hmm.
delivery of that dialogue, like it's so remarkable. And that's why now I get bad when people call it like a gimmick movie because I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like you don't get it. So that I could have put that as favorite quote too, but I ended up putting it as scene.
Yeah.
Is just that how can I am supposed to heal when I can't feel time is the most powerful line in the movie. And so that's the scene that takes me away every time.
Perfect.
yeah, absolutely tragic to consider. So well performed and delivered. I think I said like I really didn't appreciate the performances of this film
Yeah,
until this recent watch. But
for sure.
yeah, I mean, there are losses to your point that no matter how much time goes by, any day could feel like it just happened.
Hmm.
But time
Hmm.
does go by. I can't imagine if it didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, Randy, what about you?
Yeah. I'm gonna kick it
Favorite
off with
scenes?
Yeah, I'm gonna kick it off with Memento. I feel like I'm going with like yes, like low hanging fruit, low hanging green apple, easy choice here. Um, but it's got to be like that last heated conversation between Leonard and Teddy
Mhm.
when they are just locked in this ideological battle. Like the clock is ticking on when do these memories reset again. Leonard's got to make a decision. And the acting on both sides is incredible. I mean, Joey Pants himself, just rocking that scene. You read desperation on his face. You read this like perfect expression of this sort of like fake sympathy, this sort of like fake confidence. And then there are also those moments where you can tell internally he's like, "Oh, I've got him.
Mm.
I convinced him. I've won this thing." To see them go back and forth on that, to see what's happening in his mind, it blows my mind because I still don't fully understand his character. Like it seems that he's a crooked vigilante cop, maybe, is what's happening, is the best explanation that we get.
Yeah.
But yeah, to see him like thriving on that manipulation and to see him hit such a range of emotions and that back and forth, love that scene. And then for Oppenheimer, I've got to go with the gymnasium scene. Uh, this is
Mm.
just after he's been absolutely deflated with how instantly the government and the military write him out of the whole bomb process. He's just
Hmm.
so blindsided by it. That hit me the strongest on my first viewing. It hit me the strongest this time through. But he's in his daze, trying to give this celebratory hype up speech. He's trying to say all the things he's supposed to say to hype up the crowd, to meet with everyone. But then the background gets distorted, and you get
Hmm.
these light fluctuations. They make the choice to cut out the sound that mirrors that moment between the explosion and when the sound wave hits in the earlier test sequence. Um, we see people laughing and crying, and we don't know who's really laughing and who's really crying and who he is imagining is crying or laughing. It makes you think about how often you can't tell the difference between laughing and crying. Chris, I was leaning on our Lost fandom, because I can't even remember where this was, but I was listening to Jorge Garcia give an interview, and whenever he had to pretend to cry on on camera for Lost, he said he couldn't do it, so he would just like laugh instead,
Mm.
and it would sell as crying basically in the scene, at least if it was like from a distance. Um, so I love that. And like, yes, we do get these like horrific flashes of the type of carnage that you get from the Hiroshima, Nagasaki, uh, bomb sites. You get that very charred corpse. You get the woman with the peeling skin. And
Mm.
not only does it build that out of time experience, but like another read I had on that this time through is just like a lot of people in that room are celebrating. We also see someone vomiting. We see someone crying. Um, but I was also thinking, like, he's probably got an intellectual vision of some of the carnage that this bomb let loose that maybe most people don't have an image of just yet.
Mm.
They haven't made it through their schooling and seen these photos and understood the full force of the detonation. To see him collapse under that, to see all of that hitting him, to see him so shaken, really powerful stuff.
It's funny you mentioned that gym scene because I also made a Memento connection there
Mm,
where when Sammy Jankis uh gets like has that look in his eye of recognition and Leonard realizes he's just faking it because if you
yeah.
think you're supposed to know somebody, you just fake it.
Hmm.
I think Oppenheimer's like, well, I'm supposed to give a rousing speech here, so he just fakes it. Like I thought of the Sammy Jankis like
Mm,
connection there.
remember Sammy Jankis.
That's right. Gotta.
Did I
Disturbing
tell you
how
about Sammy Jankis?
Only every time I see you.
uh yeah, it's disturbing how good he is at it, right? How easy it is to tap into like what people need to hear in that moment. If only
Hmm.
we'd had it in time for the Germans, they go
Yeah, right.
extra nuts.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's barely getting it out. Randy, so you guys kind of both spared me from having to dance around my picks too much because you both danced around some of my picks because Bill, I also was afraid like I was going to try to find a way to cheat to celebrate the opening of the film.
Yeah.
I didn't want to shortchange my experience
Hmm.
with the rest of the movie to say that I was most engaged and entertained, I think, in those first minutes
Yeah.
because of those establishing shots. You used
Hmm.
the word magical. That's exactly the word I would have used. It made the
Hmm.
science seem magical as it was happening in his head, as he was established as this dreamer, really, right? He
Yep.
he has theory more than he wants to do calculations. He's not great in the lab. He's a man of vision.
Yep.
And it's so beautifully established at the beginning of the film. So yeah, I was going to celebrate just those early establishing shots. Randy, that terror when the sound drops out, the blinding light comes in. They did that twice. It happens again later in the deposition room when he's
Hmm.
really having it out with that dick, Rob.
Yeah.
My gosh. And so yeah,
Ouch.
Yeah.
both those moments were really really affecting. But my favorite scene in Oppenheimer is really straightforward. I don't mean
Hmm.
to go with like the number one overall pick, but the test sequence
Of course.
is
Yeah.
Yeah.
unbelievable for a first time viewing. Let me please just be the first time viewer here because that sequence was unbelievable. The sound design was so brilliant. It was so perfect to immerse us in that moment. There's the awe of the visual, and you can feel that awe in everybody else, and the silence, the choice to enhance everybody's breath amidst that silence, right? It wasn't
Hmm.
pure silence. It wasn't a ringing silence as if some explosion had gone off. It's just like the air was sucked out of the room. It was like this moment where the world is changing.
Mm.
And then when the sound cut back in, like I had my on-ear headphones on, and that was whoa. I was really
Hmm.
impressed. I was big smile on my face because the visuals are so just stimulating. That big pillar of fire. I'm not like a big explosion guy, but it's it's so powerful. It's so elemental. Nolan captured the those very like visceral aspects of that brilliantly. And so I know it's like the big moment in the movie. It's the mushroom cloud, but it was
Hmm.
it was brilliant for so many intricate reasons, not just because it's a big explosion. Um, and then in Memento, it's Bill. You already highlighted this before. You talked about how how hard it is to experience things exactly as Lenny does. Um, when it comes to Carrie Ann Moss
Yeah.
Hmm.
in in her living room when she manipulates him. That whole sequence they
Mhm.
lead us in with him scrambling to try to remember something. Right, we haven't seen him that desperate to try to write something down, that urgent yet in the movie, and we have no context for it. He's just trying to write something down. Then he's seemingly distracted by her arrival at home,
Yep.
and then they walk it back, and they show us that that was not her arriving at home. That was her coming back in the house after giving him just enough time to forget the awful shit she just put him through, the emotional
Hmm.
manipulation that she just expertly deployed on this very very vulnerable man. Um, so yeah, that scene, not because it, I don't find her any more morally reprehensible than Teddy. I think Teddy is the more dangerous person in
Hmm.
Lenny's life, right? I do think that she was opportunistic as opposed to like malicious in a premeditated way. But that scene does so much to establish the stakes here. This guy
Yep.
doesn't remember stuff.
Hmm.
You can tell him anything, especially once you've gotten to know his little system and how to
Yep.
work within his system. That scene establishes that truth, I think, for the first time, and then the film is like running to the finish
Yeah.
line from there.
Yep. Great point.
All right, so we dug into some of our favorite scenes. I want to know a favorite quote from each film. And Chris, I'm going to throw it right back to you. For your favorite quote from each film, what do you got for me?
I'm so glad you came back to me for the favorite
I
quote.
think I think Bill and I have both smuggled something in already, so I figured I'd give
Yeah.
you the first
A
shot.
lot of smuggling.
Yeah, I so there was I was wrestling between two favorite quotes for Memento. Um, I think if I'm being true to myself, one is like more truly heartbreaking to me, and that's why it's my favorite line. Um, where give me a minute. Sorry, pause the podcast. I had it up, and I don't want to misquote it. Ah, here it is. Okay, resume the pod. Okay. It's the scene where Lenny's burning his wife's possessions
Mm.
one by one, and his voiceover tells us, I've probably tried this before, probably burned truckloads of your stuff. Can't remember to forget you.
Hmm.
That
That's on my
is
short list also.
that's a tragic line.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is loaded with so many levels of relatable heartbreak. Um, So yeah, can't remember to forget you from Memento was the most heartbreaking line in the film, the one that I wanted to highlight. Um, and then for Oppenheimer, I don't know why this sat with me so strangely in the moment, but it's back in that test sequence.
Hmm.
I was really impressed with Cillian Murphy's performance from the moment he was like leaving his house that day. When he's leaving, saying goodbye to Kitty, and it's like, today's a really big day. You could feel all the nervous tension, the nervous energy that's in him.
Hmm.
He's so anxious and he's excited, right? He's not a man who's like fearful by any means, but he's anxious and he's excited. Um, and as he's getting ready to look out that observation window, he's in the little hut wherever he is, a safe distance from the explosion. He says, "These things are hard in your heart." He
Mm.
just says it. It's just like this
Hmm.
scientific kind of observation in that moment. Like this, he was this impressively imaginative man, a dreamer, and a feeling man, and yet also like weirdly inhuman and weirdly robotic at
Yeah.
times with his like his intellectual approach to emotions. And that's what was in that moment, was this very intellectual approach to the very, very emotional thing that was happening inside of his body, the ways in which emotions can
Mm.
impact our physicality. He was having this very detached observation.
Mm.
He's saying it to nobody but himself and to us, the audience. I thought that was really affecting.
I love that take on him so much because that got me thinking of just like the visual imagery of like Gene just tossing every bouquet of flowers into the trash. Like, stop bringing me these fucking flowers. Like, and just be real with me. But yeah, like that. Yeah, like he's got this mechanical vision. Like, this is part of how we approach. And like, yeah, you could argue it becomes a little bit of like an inside joke, like part of their rapport, but it's also this indication that he thinks there's a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, that whole sequence, like you said, it like
Yeah.
it's you know exactly what's gonna happen, and yet your heart is racing that entire
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect stuff. Bill, how about for you? A favorite quote from each film?
So I kind of took my favorite quote and put it into scene, so I'll skip that. I for Memento, I think
Sure.
I would say the quote, "Don't believe his lies." And I love it because we hear it a bunch, we see it a bunch. Like it's the standout line in the movie in a lot of ways is "Don't believe his lies," and I love it because of A, how important it is to the trajectory of the story, like in the path that it sets him on, and I love it because it's kind of a prelude to Inception, where once an
Mm,
idea gets implanted in your mind, it's almost impossible to get rid of. And so
hmm.
that once that "Don't believe his lies" gets planted on that Polaroid, he can't shake it. Like that's "Don't believe his lies" affects everything from then on. And so many of his decisions are made by that quote on the back of the Polaroid alone that it just stood out to me as like an Inception style thought. So I would say "Don't believe his lies" from Memento. Um, Oppenheimer, I think I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but again, thinking about like connections, the text on screen to open the movie talks about Prometheus giving fire to man and saying he was, quote,
Hmm.
tortured for eternity, end quote. And so too, Oppenheimer is sort of tortured for eternity in his own mind after the fact. And of course, back to Memento, Shelby is also tortured for eternity.
Hmm.
But the key difference is Shelby doesn't always know it, versus Oppenheimer very much does.
Hmm.
So I liked that connection there.
Yeah, those are both perfect. I've got to shout out just like one jokey quote from Memento that I love. And it's just, one of those moments where Teddy's just being a dick to Leonard and he's like, Natalie, you probably have her in one of your little photographs. And he pulls out the photo and it's like this just crappy, like shadowy photo. You can barely see her. He's like, great shot, Leibowitz.
That's a good one. That's a
But
That's a
good
good
one.
one. Yeah.
and even though he's a total asshole, you can't help but laugh in that moment. But no, this kind of goes back to my teaching. I shouted out the things they carried. This is a quote. I'm probably going to try to find a way to clip a little moment from this scene into class at some point. But memory can change the shape of a room or the color of a car. Memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation, not a record. And that's such an encapsulation of one of the most interesting sort of abstract themes in literature. And again, it's like the main theme at the core of one of the books that I teach. So that was like that really hit me so hard in a way that I was probably like, oh, that's interesting once upon a time. Yeah, everything that makes it into the record, right? Like even these two just records that we're creating in the deposition and in the hearing to appoint Strauss to the cabinet. We're creating a truth out of these really unreliable facts. So,
Mhm.
really great quote. And then like my list for Oppenheimer is like so long. So I'm just gonna go with one that gives me an excuse to get personal. The one that hit me the most personally, this is Oppenheimer talking to Ernest Lawrence, is portrayed by Josh Hartnett. You embrace the revolution in physics. Can't you see it anywhere else?
Mm.
And I love it because, yes, like he's talking about his political activities. He's been supporting unionization. He's looking to support refugees around the world. It also makes me think back to that opening montage, like right alongside studying physics, he's studying great works of art in museums and taking in this whole world. He sees this revolution in thinking everywhere. And there is something beautiful in his vision. Like I'm not arguing that Oppenheimer is not selfish. I'm not arguing that he doesn't have this awful hubris. But I do personally watch this film and I do kind of take him at his word that he believed seeing the power of nuclear weapons would have such a profound effect on the morality of
Mm.
people,
Yeah.
um, that it could effectively stop war. And unfortunately, I'm living in a world where I've seen that people have really different moral lines than I thought existed. And that hit in 2023, and it's hit me even harder here at the end of 2025. So that whole idea, this desperation for people to look for change and be inspired by change, and how frustrating it can be to see like a friend or a colleague just kind of like stuck in this safe position, like refusing to move forward. That really resonated with me personally.
We're gonna smuggle in one more funny one from Memento.
Yes.
I had to have, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up when we cut to him running and he goes, "So what am I doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm chasing this guy." And then he
Yes.
points a gun at him and he goes, "Nope, he's chasing me." That is just comedy gold.
It
Yes.
makes him seem like a Jason Bourne level action star. He's so composed as he's having that internal
Hmm.
dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Randy, I really love those pulls for Oppenheimer. I'm glad you found a way to speak about his vision because one quote that I almost shared, and I feel like it kind of nicely encapsulates some of the themes of the films when he's chatting with I won't pronounce the French last name well, Chevalier.
Chevalier. Yeah, yeah.
Chevalier.
Chevalier. Um, he's having a tough moment. It's weighing on him. And Chevalier says, "You see, Robert, you see beyond the world we live in. There's a price to be paid for that."
Mm.
Mm,
So I'm glad you found a way to celebrate that big vision of his because that seems to be so much of what the film is just about. There's a quote I
yeah.
actually chose not to share because I thought for sure somebody else would share because it's so close to the themes of the film.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, similar in Memento. There was one that I didn't say because I thought for sure we would get to it thematically. Just because I don't remember doesn't mean my actions are meaningless.
Yeah.
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 It's on my short list also. My Memento quotes was
Yep.
just like the script basically.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's a really good film or something.
Oh, almost.
All right. So we've done scene, we've done quote. It's time to get a little bit more granular. Um, let's talk about some standout shots. Nolan is, of course, one of the all-time greats here. So, Bill, we'll go right back to you. Do you have a favorite shot from each film?
Actually, Memento was the harder one here for me. Obviously, there's the shot that I already alluded to of someone passing by Sammy Jenkins, and I thought that was like a little too low-hanging fruit to pick that one. So, other than that, it's a pretty just like well-constructed film, but not a super like visually intense movie. But
Mm,
I will say, more context-based. You already talked eloquently, Chris, about Natalie's heel turn as like one of the most jaw-dropping twists turns I've ever seen.
hmm.
And one of my and the list that the one that I had for favorite shot was when she is going out to her car just to kill time to like wait for his memory to reset. We get a
Yeah.
shot like through the windshield of looking at her sitting there, and there's just this slight smile on her face as she knows what she's about to do to deceive him. And it's so chilling. And Carrie Ann Moss is just crushing it.
Mm,
And I think of that shot and I still like get angry at her because she's so good
Hmm.
in it. So that would be my shot for Memento. Oppenheimer was hard because the movie is so freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick like a single shot, I think I got to give it to like the Batman gear up sequence scene. Like he Oppenheimer gets told like you can't like you shouldn't wear a military uniform, like you should be who you are.
Hmm.
And then we cut to him and this beautiful shot of him standing looking outside a window at the town he's created, and he's picking up the hat and the pipe, and it's basically like the him gearing up. And the music really kind of makes that scene too. But that shot of him looking out and his iconic uh prop, so to speak, right there with him, I give that to my best shot.
Love it. Absolutely. Two really nicely nuanced pulls. That is such
Yeah.
a niche pull for Memento. That
Mm.
little smirk on her face, especially when you know she just declared how much she was going to enjoy what she was going to do to him. Oh,
Exactly.
so
Oh, it's
good.
brutal.
Brutal. All right, Randy, you're up.
I jokingly just want to ask if I can take every single time Joe Pantoliano just pops into frame and says, Lenny!
Yeah.
Whether he's popping in a door, popping onto a windshield, every time he nails it. No, but I thought about going with like one of these big reverse sequences. I was thinking back, Chris, to our episode on the Love Below as he shakes it like a Polaroid picture
Mm.
in slow motion in reverse. But I decided to just go with a small moment, and I'm going back to Carrie Ann Moss as Natalie. She's so good in this role.
Really.
Like whether or not you love the full overall writing of the character, her performance is stellar. In this movie. And the one that really struck me, they wake up after having spent the night together. Um, and they're in like this pretty loving pose, and like she starts to stir, and she just like very lovingly kind of like moves her arm up closer to him. But then as she turns, she just like recoils. Like you just see like this whole like snap into like fear, discomfort. Like she's looking at the tattoos and she's looking at this sort of like blank innocence on his face after all they've like been through together. And that was one of the many moments where she just really hit me. And like we see more of it later. She's done some pretty horrible stuff here. I mean, granted, Leonard did kill her boyfriend and show up wearing his clothes, which is pretty fucked up. But like,
True. Hmm.
in chronologically their last moment together, like I do feel like I read some genuine guilt in her reading of that scene. Like she encourages him to picture his wife, and it seems to be well intentioned almost. So like there's some complexity to her feelings, right? He talks about not knowing why you feel guilty sometimes or whatever. But yeah, in that little moment in the bed, and then like you said, so many great shots in Oppenheimer, but I'm gonna kind of like go into the back half of a shot you mentioned before. It's that moment in the deposition where they decide to put Oppenheimer and Jean together, having sex. They're both naked in the middle of that deposition. Um, you know, it's so easy to use nudity incorrectly or ineffectively in a movie, and I thought this was like 1,000,000% the correct choice here. Because not only does it heighten like what we're seeing on Kitty's face, like what
Hmm.
she's trying to hide, what she's trying to manage as she relives this story. And we find out by the end of the movie, it's certainly not the only affair that she's had to worry about or think about or have on her mind. Um, but like I was just really striking how much his attitude about the bomb is like mirrored in his attitude toward his sexual activities. When Gene dies, either by suicide or murder, and Kitty's in his face, like you don't get to do this and then have us all feel sorry for you.
Hmm.
You don't get to do that. There are some real consequences here. And like just even the way he is like feeling so powerful and strong and on top of the world, and even though he keeps telling everyone else they have no control over what happens to the bomb, when he gets cut out of that relationship, the second that test is successful, he is broken, he is deflated, and there is this real sort of like sexual nature. Like he can't deal with the fallout from this affair that he had with this government that cannot be trusted with the technology he helped them develop, and he doesn't really know how to live with those consequences in a healthy way. And like you see it echoed throughout the entire film. Like, I talked about that whole gymnasium bleacher sequence earlier. There are people laughing and crying, and but there's also a couple like making out under the bleachers, right? Like that's all happening. at the same time in the midst of this celebration. And that was a great way to just like bring us into his sort of vulnerability, his flaws. And yeah, that's a really powerful sequence.
Great picks.
Great picks. Great picks. I found myself wanting to just continue to talk about Natalie and continue to explore the complexities
Yeah.
of that character.
For real.
It's ridiculous that folks would say that it's underwritten, and I'm sure you could say that it is, but like, just let yourself think, man. Just let
Yeah.
yourself think and wonder and ask yourself questions and let the film try to answer those questions. She was brilliant. I think she is pretty
Yeah.
genuine in that last moment, just to continue the
Yeah.
dialogue that you were
Mhm.
having, Randy.
Mhm.
Um, I think the world's been awful to her, and she has learned to be awful also.
Hmm.
But I don't think she is like malicious. I think that she was opportunistic, and I think she does feel sorry for this poor guy.
Yep.
Um, all right, let me. I still haven't decided as you guys were speaking. Uh, I'm gonna keep it pretty classic. I was so I think I messaged you, Randy, off the pod to say that I just forgot how, or maybe it was you, Bill, how immediately engaging Memento is. I think it was you, Bill.
Hmm.
Actually, we were
Yeah, yeah.
chatting.
We chatted a bit.
Just from the first minutes, you're just like, I
Yeah.
can't look away from this. Like that's where I had problems taking notes, Bill, because I just didn't want to look away
Yeah.
from the
Mm.
screen for fear that I would miss some key piece of
Yep.
the puzzle, right? Didn't want to blink. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit here because I'm not picking one shot. I'm picking two, but
Yeah.
it's the parallels, right? It's the beginning of the film, the Polaroid that he's shaking out, um, and then at the end of the film, as he's looking at the dead body of Jimmy G. He's got these two Polaroids, and we're at two totally different points in our own understanding. They're very, very similar shots, very, very similarly framed. It's in tight. You got mostly just the top bit of his hand and the Polaroid itself. Um, and for me, the contrast of my own understanding of his circumstances, of the narrative at play, were so far apart in those two shots. I really enjoy them as mirror images of each other. Randy, I also thought of Outcast in our recent pod on the Love Below because I forgot that opening sequence is literally in reverse,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
he's not. It looks like he's shaking it to destroy it. It's like he's
Mm.
shaking the image away rather than shaking the image into clarity. And it reminded me of how Polaroid had to issue the
Yeah.
formal statement after Hey Ya came out to be like, no, don't actually shake your Polaroids. That's a myth, and you'll ruin your photo if you shake it too much. Um, Anyways, so yeah, those first and final Polaroids I think are my pick for Memento. Um, then in Oppenheimer, yeah, I don't know. I won't go back to the test sequence. So I guess give me that very final close up when we finally get
Yeah.
the missing piece of the puzzle from Einstein, and we're left with this look on
Yeah.
Hoppy's face. I mean, it was all over the marketing. It's
Yeah.
brilliant from Cillian Murphy, and it's Christopher Nolan just trusting the camera and trusting his actor and being in super super tight, letting him to totally fill the frame. Um, those eyes are a cheat code
Yeah.
in many many respects, and we've just watched this 3 hour epic journey into so many complex questions. I don't think anybody can walk away from that film really definitively feeling one way or the other than I think we all definitively agree that Strauss is a shit. Um, I assume. Uh, and so all of that heaviness, that weight, that ambiguity of the moral implications of all this, it's just like right there in his eyes, on his face. It's tragic.
Yep.
I'm grateful it's in color.
For sure.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Beautiful
Love it.
stuff. All right. So I believe that is all of our shots. So I just want to take a look. Christopher Nolan, been making great films forever, been nominated and recognized in many award shows for many years. But like the big set of high profile, Oscar wins comes with Oppenheimer. And despite having this huge filmography and having been recognized in a lot of other ways, I was just curious what you each thought sort of like the secret sauce was that just really pushed things over the top with Oppenheimer, where he just kind of got the full like red carpet rolled out. Like this was the film. Um, uh, Bill, what do you think was in that secret sauce to give this film that extra layer of recognition?
Well, I think to your point, Nolan's craftsmanship's undeniable, and so he
Hmm.
has gotten nominations and wins for technical achievement. And I think Inception got a screenwriting nod, if I remember correctly. So,
Mhm.
but all of his movies generally before this, or most of them, are considered sort of genre film, like action or adventure or sci-fi, and the Academy doesn't
Yeah.
really go for that.
Hmm.
So for me, I think the difference here is this has the weight of historical importance behind it. It's a period piece, which the Academy always eats up. But I think the secret sauce, like the engine driving the train of this movie, is the magnetic performance by Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, role he was born to play. Uh, and he just transforms into the character, and he's basically in every frame. And
Yeah.
when he's not in the frame, everybody's favorite RDJ is in the frame. So like between those two carrying the movie, I think that did it. I think it deserves the best picture accolade. And I think it's also one of those movies that becomes like the definitive movie on this subject for decades to come.
Hmm.
And so I think it was just the magnitude of the history and the period piece element and Cillian Murphy taking it to the finish line, I think is what made the difference.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect analysis. Chris, what is it for you?
Yeah, I was going to say very similarly to Bill. I think that this is the Oscar darling, right? This is the
Mhm.
one that um, the Academy could really wrap their arms all the way around without any of the baggage that they seem to have for genre filmmaking. Like they really stretched themselves for The Dark Knight back in the day, and I think this was in the same way that I think actors get the "We Owe You One" win. I think this was the opportunity for the Academy to really say, okay, we're doing it. We're all in. We're celebrating Nolan. He finally did a movie that nobody can really turn their nose up at. It has this weight of historical importance. And then you have this incredible, not just Cillian Murphy, the whole cast.
Really, yeah.
You know, the whole cast. Every next like scene that unfolds, the most random bit player who's only going to be in maybe a minute and a half of the movie is one of the biggest names you've
Yeah.
ever seen in movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it seems to me that this is a movie that was made with the full support of the industry. People wanted to be involved in this. I think he got the
Yeah.
best of the best across the full operation, right? The full project at every level, from sound design to execution. Um, I'm sure he had his pick of the litter.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be involved. It's like this one of these amazing casts that isn't just stunt casting. The gimmick isn't that it's this big ensemble cast. It's just that there were so many characters to go around and such a sprawling historical narrative and many great not just character actors but like leading actors wanted to have some part of this. That has to weigh with the Academy when they're voting.
Mhm.
Yep. Gotta. And to your point, speaking of like Nolan then and now, can we talk about the fact that he deftly handles 20 characters in Oppenheimer just as well as he did in a movie with three characters in
Yeah,
Memento? It's still just as clear storytelling wise, and which
absolutely.
is incredible in and of itself.
Remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mostly just wanted to echo what both of you had to say. Like, yeah, it's got the trappings, yada yada. You both covered that really well. But yeah, it's Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible performer. Like the last couple of years, I went back and caught up on the show that is the secret MVP of making this movie happen, which is the show Peaky Blinders, which is fine as a show. Like the show is fine. It has great moments. It has moments. But in that property, you have Cillian Murphy always operating at 1,000,000%
Hmm.
and playing a mover and a shaker, someone who can play all the angles, someone who is the smartest person in the room, but is also just like battered by regret. He is someone who has made in that case like sacrifices on a battlefield for his country and can sort of like play up the sacrifices he's made in the past for support, yet he's got these other demons that he has to live with. And the fact that he had like all of those seasons to play around with all those things before Oppenheimer came around, and then take what he learned there and build this incredible character is great. And just the way he can switch from like this like granite emotionless gargoyle to a terrified little kid.
Mm.
Like in that sequence with Pash with Casey Affleck there, he just falls apart and becomes
Yeah.
this confused, scared little child. And the fact that he can do all that stuff so seamlessly just blows my mind. Yeah. Nolan's got the game. I don't know if there's any other performer that could have made this work anywhere near as well as Cillian Murphy.
Agreed.
Yeah. We've somehow managed to not celebrate Robert Downey Jr. at all tonight.
Yeah.
It's the best acting I've seen him do. I've enjoyed him in everything he's ever been in. But when you want to talk about like why the Oscar this time around, we can really zero in on RDJ
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that best supporting actor nom, because I I couldn't believe how much I really disliked that character by the end. How
Mm.
much how much I loved Han Solo for
Yeah.
for his like willingness to kind of stand up to this guy in that moment.
Yeah.
Like watching him change to the disdain for Strauss after hearing how things really went, or putting it together. Um, I loved when he asked him, "Isn't it possible they were talking about something more important than you?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great moment.
I hated Strauss so much in that moment that it was just the punch in the face that I needed him to get from somebody. But that's all in the performance. It's really, really brilliant.
And we haven't even talked about Matt Damon as Leslie Groves. Like
Yeah.
there's so much
How
to
does
dig
he
into.
manage to be intimidating and affable at the same time?
Yeah, truly.
Matt Damon.
Can I just say I love Matt Damon in this movie. He manages to toe that line between like just his frustration and annoyance with Oppenheimer, but like also needing to recognize how much he respects him. I have
Yep.
to say though, Matt Damon is the source of the only line in this movie that I hate, and I've hated it ever since the trailers. I hate one line of dialogue in this movie. It's just when Matt Damon's like, "Why would you come? Because it's the most important thing that's ever
Yeah.
happened in the world." That's the only line in the whole movie that doesn't work for me. It's not Matt Damon's fault.
They do that also in like the choosing the target sequence where he says like this will end World War II and bring our boys home. I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay. I get it. All right, sure.
yeah. But no, but like there's so many layers to that performance. It's
Yeah.
it's an A+ home run. And if that's the only thing I can scrounge up to think it was a little bit silly, I think we've got a winner on our hands.
Mhm.
I've got one. If we're doing it, there was one moment, only one moment in
I
all of
think
Oppenheimer.
I think I know what you're gonna say, but I'm wondering. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, I'm gonna go back to Han Solo here. But when he's like, "Oh, up and coming senator from Massachusetts,
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah,
Kennedy,
yeah, yeah.
John F. Kennedy," I was like, that was like really heavy-handed and silly.
That's actually not the one I thought. I thought you were gonna say the scene where this is my only real knock on Oppenheimer. Still doesn't really make much sense. Is he's meeting with his lawyer late at night. He walks the lawyer out. The lawyer gets in a cab and drives away. And then Einstein comes over from across the street and they start
Yes.
talking. I'm like, wait, what? Just happens
Yep,
to be
yep.
there at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I like that was the only one that I was like, okay, what are we doing?
It did take me a second to like orient myself in time. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like at Princeton or whatever when they're both
Yeah.
Sure,
right there. I
sure.
guess maybe they're like neighbors, but it was this weird like neighbor Al from across the fence and Home Improvement.
Yeah, it's Albert Einstein coming out of the bushes. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Wilson.
Wilson. Yeah,
Wilson,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Al was his co-host, my bad. Really great. I'm glad we started to kind of jot a little bit more freely here because it's that time to just go around the horn and talk about anything that we think we missed. Themes, filmmaking choices, movie magic. Just what didn't you get to talk about tonight that you want to make sure gets said before we leave this conversation? We'll do a little round robin style. Bill,
Yeah.
we'll go to you first.
So watching Nolan kind of grow as an artist, what stood out to me the most on the viewing of these two films side by side is how much more integral music has become to his work.
Mm.
Mm,
Like the music in Memento is utilitarian, really. Like it has some moments, but it doesn't really stand out. And you could say the same for Insomnia, even the same for Prestige. It's kind of samey. It's kind of like he got the reputation of being the dark, brooding guy, and I think the music's kind of heavy and nondescript in a lot of in
Hmm.
those three movies. Then he gets paired up with Hans Zimmer for the Batman movies and Inception, and all of
Hmm.
a sudden it starts to become like a real key element of his films.
mm.
Yes.
I think he takes it to the next level with Interstellar, where like there, if I hear those two notes from Interstellar, I start to like tear up. Like it's become
Yep.
such a powerful part. And then in Oppenheimer, the music is so vital. And like
Hmm.
it's fun and exciting when he's studying abroad, but it's heavy and important when it needs to be.
Yeah.
And the music drops out during the explosion. Like it's such a more considered part of the construction of his films than it used to be.
Hmm.
And I think a big part of that is as he became a bigger artist, he could partner with bigger composers.
Hmm.
Yep.
But I think when he did that, it changed the way that he worked. And it's just interesting to think about that when I watched them back to back. And I don't know that I would have considered that otherwise if I hadn't seen them in this way. So I think that was the big standout for me from a filmmaking perspective is how much
Nice.
music is part of his process now.
Love that. Great call. I'll just quickly piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Um, and want to zero in on because I was going to talk about the sound design, not just the music, but the overall
Yeah.
sound design in Oppenheimer. Um, the stomping of the
Yeah.
feet in the auditorium for that celebratory, we are fed glimpses of that earlier on. At first, it's just audio. It's just thudding that's happening. I forget the first time you hear it, but it's just the thundering thumps. And I
Yeah.
remember being intrigued and wondering, what's the context for that?
Hmm.
And I thought it was going to be more closely tied to the explosion itself, the lead up to something. And then you get a little like flash image of the stomping feet without context. And again, the
Yep.
sound is, and that recurring note of those stomping feet throughout the film was used so
Yeah.
effectively. What a creative choice.
Yeah.
It doesn't work without the timey-wimey nature of the storytelling. But
True.
yeah, at first disorienting, and then all of a sudden, like very, very orienting as it slides into its proper
Yes.
place in the narrative.
Good pick.
Randy,
Um,
anything to add?
yeah, we haven't talked enough about just like it's just banger after banger from Einstein in this movie. Like I love every single thing he
Oh
says the
yeah.
entire movie, even if he does just show up out of nowhere from behind a car. Like, here we are, lost in your quantum world of probabilities and needing certainty. But maybe my favorite is just that whole thing about when your time is up. That award wasn't really for me. It was for all of you, wasn't it? And we get that flash forward to Oppenheimer being on the receiving end of that changing of the guard. Um, it really helps sort of highlight that regret at the end. So
Yeah.
shout out to Einstein. Great use of him in this movie.
Good call.
Uh, I want to quickly jump back in here so I can shout out Mark Boone Jr. in Memento. This is Bert from the Discount Inn.
Bert.
Oh yeah.
My guy Bobby from Sons of Anarchy, the detective from Batman Begins, who could
Yeah.
never forget him eating a falafel in the rain.
Just swear to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What, they don't like falafel? He's the first character that we see, like we know he's manipulating Lenny. Lenny realizes in the moment he's being manipulated by this guy. He's like, oh, like you're messing with me because of my memory
Hmm.
thing. How many rooms have I rented here?
Yeah.
Um, he was this just like, side character to help fill out the world a little bit. To your point
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
the film really centers on those three main ones, but he was wonderful in every scene he was in because like he was truly innocent, not like he's not unkind to Lenny. He does take advantage of him. He seems more like the way the most normal person in the world would react to discovering this Lenny character in the world. And he was perfect in that little bit part. So shout out to my guy
Yeah.
Bobby.
Good pull. Good pull.
Bill, anything else?
No, I think I guess my only final thought is again looking at Nolan from a filmmaker's perspective then and now, I just think Oppenheimer has a certain confidence and bravado in the style that's Memento has as well, but slightly different, where
Mhm.
Memento, like he knows what he's doing, but he's really holding your hand and hoping you come along and like, all right, this is how the movie works. I'm gonna teach you how to like watch the structure. I'm gonna teach you how it works. Like, I hope you get it. Versus on Oppenheimer just starts and it just moves and you got to keep up. And
Yeah.
it's just so impressive
Mm,
watching him kind of grow over his career.
yeah.
Beautiful. I've got two. I just can't live with myself if I don't shout them out quickly. Oppenheimer first. I had completely forgotten about when we named the Trinity Project that he shouts out John Donne and the Holy Sonnets, Batter My Heart, Three-Person God, which
Ooh.
is, basically a reflection on someone who feels consumed with sin, unable to break away from their sinful ways. And it's not just like asking for help from a god, but is like you need to like physically like and emotionally like break me down. You need to break down and destroy this person I am so that I can be enthralled with you. It's like this very physically worded sort of thing. And then you think about Oppenheimer subjecting himself to just being pulled through the ringer. He doesn't really fight back, much to Kitty's dismay.
Mm.
Like he feels like he needs to be broken down to be lifted back up again. And then my final one's Memento. I just had a bunch of notes about that apartment scene with the wrong apartment, and I never really snuck them in. But I just love the mirror imagery of that sequence, right? Like you've got room number 6 and room number 9, but even when he does his little credit card trick to like break into the door, he's on like the right hand side of the door the first time, and then the left hand side of the door the next time. So like just the way they really leaned into that mirror imagery. Yeah, so many great tricks.
Great scene.
Leaves that poor guy knocked out cold in his discount
Whoops.
hotel
The
room.
discount. He just says sorry.
Yeah. Oh, so bad. All right. I got two more quick ones. Then I have a
Yes.
question for you both. I got to be humble and
Yeah.
ask you both a question and see if you can help me understand something that went over
Yeah.
my head. But let me stick to Memento real quick. They're both kind of silly, I think. Semi-serious, one of them. I'll start with the really silly. We haven't shouted out yet. My like fully took me out of the movie because I forgot that he was in this because when I first saw this, I couldn't have known who
Ugh.
he is. Randy, do you know where I'm going here?
I have a theory.
Thomas Lennon as the doctor who was trying to condition uh
Oh
Ah.
yeah, because he's also Bruce Wayne's doctor.
uh whoa, is he?
When he says I've seen worse cartilage in knees before, and he goes, that's because you have no cartilage in your knees. So Nolan has used him as a doctor twice
Nice.
Is he in? Oh my God, he
in Dark
is.
Knight Rises.
Wow. Yeah, he has used him as a doctor twice. Um Reno 911, Out
Yep.
Cold,
Yep.
comedy legend. And so when he's sitting there and he's shocking this poor man, like this is the doctor who's conducting the conditioning, he's just like cold. Like, no, this is a test.
It's a test, Sammy.
Oh my God. Almost took me out of the moment completely just because it was him. Um, I found a weird Of Mice and Men reference in this for the first time.
Nice.
It didn't hit me before, but I feel like Teddy is like the opposite of your George character. He thinks he's
Yep.
got his Lenny that he's like living his
Mm.
life with. Like he tells this whole story in the end about how like they've been on the road together ever since the accident,
Mm.
really, and he's been perpetuating this thing for him and kind of using him for his own ends.
You were
And
so happy. Look how happy you were. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're this
Yeah.
pair, and like I think he does think that he's a caretaker for this simple guy that he kind of like he pities in Lenny, but
Hmm.
he doesn't have any real empathy for his Lenny. He isn't like George at all. He doesn't love his
Mm.
Lenny by any means, and so he's the one who gets shot in the end.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, those are my last two observations. Oppenheimer, my question for you both. Please help me understand.
Okay.
Okay, he's having sex with Florence Pugh.
Yes.
Florence Pugh needs him to read the words out loud. So we as the audience get the first establishment of the heavy quote, I
Yep.
am become death, destroyer of worlds, which then we can parallel later as he reflects on the reality of what he has created and the reality of that prophecy. In that context, it makes a lot of sense. In the real context of the sex moment with the other human being, what's the motivation there? For her, for him, for the reading, for the further sexual stimulation that comes from the reading. They hadn't established that she was into sort of the danger that could come with his mind, or like it wasn't like they showed any particular foresight in her character that I noted for like looking down the line for what this kind of a brilliant mind could eventually lead to. So what was happening there? Was it just
Yeah, I think you could kind of play it as she's attracted to his intellect, so she asked him to read this thing from another language, and then Nolan uses that as a way to smuggle in his most Oppenheimer's most famous quote. I don't know. It did seem a little on the nose to be like, how are we going to get this, the only quote that people actually know from the real J. Robert Oppenheimer into this movie? It felt a little shoehorned in. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it's partly that attracted to the intellect, like his big move is when he flexes on her and he's like, "Oh, well, I read that text in the original German."
Right.
And then I think we cut straight to them in the bedroom from there. And if I want to lean into what I was saying earlier about the sexual comparisons and like, we're going back to John Donne and everything, like sex, like the tiny death. You could make a case there, like it's further tying like a sort of like sexualized nature to this pursuit of the bomb. I'm making that up in real time. I did not have that thought watching the movie, but I think it could
No,
work.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant. It's further evidence that like it's a thematic choice, it's an artistic choice within the
Sure.
filmmaking, right?
Sure.
As opposed to something that uh, had believable motivation in the context of our characters' lives, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Yeah.
as writers, filmmakers, just make our characters do a thing because it's what the story really wants and needs, not because it's what a human being would actually do. I thought for sure what she was getting at was like, to your point, like big brain, that's attractive. Like read it to me in the language. Don't just tell me what it
Yeah.
says. Like say the word she says, almost as if she knew what they were gonna be. Like she's like, say it, and then she like clearly gets more into the sex after he says the word. She's like, oh, that's so hot.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not what really happened in real life. But anyways, I thought I genuinely was like not big brained enough to get it, but I'm grateful we talked through it.
No, yeah, I think that was just a little some creative license that I just let that pitch go by. I was like, all right, we're
Yeah,
moving
no
on.
one's mad at the scene, right? So you let
Yeah,
that pitch go
yeah.
by.
Right, right, right. All right. Are we time? Is it ready for the extra credit section?
Let's
I
go.
think that was the bell. Class is almost over. It's time for extra credit.
Alrighty. Well, since you were last with us, Bill, we have added an extra credit section. We have some different superlatives that come in different ways, shapes, and forms, inspired by some of our other favorite properties. Chris started his Doctor Who journey with me. And there's a character named Sally Sparrow. If you're not a Doctor Who fan, you don't really need to know anything about her apart from the fact that she's played by Carey Mulligan. And she has this great quote where she argues that she likes sad things because sad is happy for deep people. Um,
Good
so
line.
so it is. It's one of my favorite lines. And Chris, just because you've got a little more experience with our extra credit section, I'm going to go to you first. Who are you going to give the Sally Sparrow Sad is Happy for Deep People award?
You actually uh prefaced this earlier. It's for Carrie Ann Moss.
Mm.
First of all, she's a character who I could really see uttering a phrase like this and meaning it. Um, but in that moment where she wakes up next to him, and for the briefest moment, she does look a little shook, a little disturbed. She recoils a bit. I love the way you laid out the idea of his innocence in that
Mm,
moment that she's seeing on his face, this blank kind of like, despite all they've experienced, she's looking at the tattoos. In that moment, she's reckoning with her own choices to take advantage of this person, to harm this person. Um, it's truly sad in that moment to watch her reckon with that, if only briefly. So I'm happy to give this award to Carrie Ann Moss and Natalie.
perfect choice. Bill, how about for you? Sad is happy for deep people.
So I've never seen an episode of Doctor Who in my life, so I was curious who Sally Sparrow was. So thank you for the context. For me though, I Chris already talked about it, so I don't need to belabor it. But the look on Oppenheimer's face in the final montage sequence, it's just as far as like sad moments, the intercut of that with the rockets and the spreading fire over the earth and the music, it's incredible. And his contemplation of all that at once is so harrowing and sad, and it's just such a perfect way to end the movie. So I got to give it to Cillian Murphy in that final scene.
Not a happy movie, Oppenheimer.
No, not the
No,
feel good movie of the
no.
year. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Randy, where are you going with this?
I'm tempted to give it to Gene Tatlock. The only reason I don't want to do it is, this is a woman who presumably died by suicide. There are some conspiracy theories, but to the best of our knowledge, she really did commit suicide. They raised some questions here. So I don't want to imply that she was in like a healthy place with her reflections on the world, even though she was so often leaning into sadness. So loved that character and the portrayal in the film. But instead, I'm going to give it to the guy I was just shouting at a moment ago, Albert Einstein.
Mm.
He's been living just like these decades with people no longer seeing his value the way that they used to, seeing him as some kind of artifact of the past, yet he's got all this wisdom to offer, right?
Mm.
Like he's finding some clarity and reflecting on where his life is. You know, I'm not going to get involved with this bomb or these calculations. I think you should consider the danger that you're unleashing on the world. Um, but he's still able to find like this growing strength of character through all of these things
Mm.
he's worried about. And he's a better candidate than Gene because he's still trying to do some good. He's still trying to have some kind of influence on Oppenheimer, this guy whose intellect he clearly respects, a guy he clearly cares for. So there you have it.
Okay.
Great, great description of Einstein. It made me realize that he's a little bit like Uncle Iroh from Avatar, as he kind of ages into this wisdom, uh, this wonderful wisdom. Yeah, that's really good. Real quick before we move on, do they intercut for the briefest moment a hand on the back of Jean's head in the scene where we learn of her death?
Yes.
They
There
do, right?
is a thought that she could have been killed by, I guess, the FBI or whoever, or communists, or because she's a communist. I think they allude to him thinking that there's a chance that she was killed because of her involvement with him and with all that stuff. But to Randy's point, based on the book and general historical knowledge, it is pretty much assumed that or presumed that it was an actual suicide.
Yeah, and I think the spoken context of the film is that it's a suicide, but as I said, I think it's a frame, perhaps just a single frame of a gloved hand
Yeah, he
mixed
I
in.
think that's his guilt manifesting
Mm.
that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. And like I feel like they intentionally put it right next to the Casey Affleck stuff and like all of his threats of violence and murder.
Hmm.
I feel like those are happening in close
mm,
succession.
Mm.
good point.
Yeah, very sad. Okay. Moving on from Sally Sparrow and sad as happy. It's time for a character who's near and dear to my heart. This is uh, the Batman Punch Your Problems in the Face Award. This
Mm.
award is given to the character that is more likely to choose toxicity than therapy. He doesn't want to do the work. He just wants to throw a punch. Uh, Bill, I am going to go to you first in this one. I'm curious to get what your
Hmm.
gut instinct is without influence. We talked about this a little bit at the top of the pod. Who were you thinking about for the Batman Punch Your Problems Award?
So it's less like physical punchy, but I am gonna go with Joe Pantoliano's Teddy from Memento because I think that he has a way of talking his way out of anything.
Hmm.
And I think that that would be his default position versus confronting something or going to therapy. I think he would talk his way out of it. And that's kind of what he does throughout that movie is he talks around things. He changes his story to match like the vibe that he's getting from Lenny. So I'm gonna go with Teddy.
Perfect choice. I absolutely co-sign the idea that Teddy is not interested in doing the work.
Hmm.
He's just going to find a new angle, a new grift.
Yep.
That's great. Randy, what about you?
It's going to be Catherine Kitty Oppenheimer for
Ugh,
me.
good one.
Going through a lot. They don't linger on it too long, but you know, you can see the strain she's under, like just doing the single parent thing with this guy who's so disinterested in parenting that he gives his child away for a huge stretch of time.
Yeah.
She's carrying all that weight on her own, but she's mainly getting this award for her role in that deposition, the
Mm,
insistence that they fight and that they fight back. Um, I was just as mad as she was when he shakes Teller's freaking hands in that moment. And
Yeah.
then in the fast forward to the ceremony in the future, she's still refusing to shake that hand. She's kind of biting her lip. Um, but meanwhile, She might be right about some of these things, but she could also really use some therapy for sure. She's got a lot on her plate.
Yeah, I mean, she chooses alcoholism, at least,
Yeah.
right? We see that pretty clearly. Um, Again, what a brilliant choice within the film. You don't have to ever talk about it. It's
Yeah.
just there.
Right.
It's just part of the experience,
Show,
right?
don't tell. Exactly.
Yeah. I did love when she was in the deposition as well, Randy. I love when they question whether or not she should, and he's like, "We're grown-ups,
Hmm.
Yeah.
she and I." I was like, "That's a real relationship." Like,
Yeah. Despite those flaws, there's a respect.
yeah, yeah.
Like even that scene where she yells at him, like she's not fixated on the affair itself. It's this demand for pity
Hmm.
that's really making her mad.
Yeah, yeah.
Not,
They're
I'm
they're
not saying she loved the affair, but
they're an
but
interesting no, they're an interesting couple. I'm sure there's a whole film that focuses much more on just them and their
yeah,
family life with all this other stuff in the background that's equally as gripping, right?
Yep.
yeah.
Um, okay, for me, Randy, you almost spoiled my pick. It's Teller.
Yeah,
Oh,
Teller
yeah,
is this ambitious, envious, childlike man. He stands there petulantly at the barrier, which he could easily step over. He's a very
yeah.
tall man. It's not electrified. I guess, like, of course, it's implied probably there's guards there and stuff, but he just like petulantly stands there in tantrum fashion
yep.
until he gets what he wants, and then they raise the gate and he walks out. This is a guy who absolutely doesn't want to do the work. He just wants to throw a tantrum. He wants
Yeah.
to express his emotions in the least productive way possible, feel his big feelings, and then move on. Maybe he doesn't get what he wants this time. Maybe he'll get it next time. But either way, he's not going to give you the satisfaction of some sort of growth out of this. And you feel that in the deposition. You feel it right there in that last um, the award ceremony when Kitty refuses to shake his hand. He's like self-satisfied. He gets the handshake from Oppenheimer. He doesn't get it from her. And right in that moment, he could punch her in the face. You see it in his face. He's like belittled and
Hmm.
he's hurt. Um, he isn't self-reflective the way that that lack of handshake should make him. He kind of like has this like, huh, so we're still doing that, are we? Rather than anything that borders on remorse or reflectiveness. So yeah, Teller gets the Batman award this time around.
Nice.
All right. We've all figured out who would punch their problems in the face. So now it's down to our favorite question, Chris. And this is, if you could own one prop or souvenir from one of these properties, which would it be and why? Bill, you are our guest, so you get to go first. What are you taking home with you?
It's the Polaroids from Memento, like easily.
Yeah.
So
Like
good.
it, like either the "Don't Believe His Lies" one, or I actually really love the bloodied one where he's pointing at his chest where he would get the tattoo to say that he did it. Like that
Hmm.
conveys so much,
Hmm.
and those are just so critical and iconic in my mind. The Polaroids, so I would definitely take those. I also, as a kid, tried as long as I could to find the exact pens he uses to write on the back of the Polaroids, but I
I
never
love
really
that.
did. Like I found a similar enough pens, but I never found the same ones. So I would always want those. But the Polaroids for sure would be my prop of choice.
A
Yeah.
phenomenal pick. I'm glad you're saying Polaroids. I was gonna say you don't have to pick one; you can have them all. But I almost picked this, so I need to know, Bill. How are they on display? Are they in a photo album? They're in like a nice
Yeah, I
shadow
was
box. Like,
thinking
what do you
about
have?
that. I was thinking about if I had them, would I like hang them somehow? But if you hang them, you can't see the backside. So like with
Oh,
the writing on them. So I'd have to workshop that a little bit more. I'm not sure.
I got it for
Yeah.
you. It's the baseball card books,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
like
you
an
can see the front
acrylic that
and
you
the
can see.
back.
Okay, yeah, good
Yeah,
call. Good call.
I was just gonna say, if you want it, I'll let you have the Polaroid camera as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
If you
that's a good
wanted to
one.
just sort of complete the set, that might be part of a display if you want to go with a display case. Um,
Yeah, I can wear it under my arm when I'm wearing a suit, just like he does.
although,
So it's like hidden. Yeah, it's a great
yeah.
one.
Not a
quick,
gun. He's constantly adjusting. It's his
Yeah.
camera.
quick shout out. I failed to include our sometimes bit about cell phones, and I don't want to get into it, but I just wanted to say that like I just forgot how much I love like the visceral, handheld, lived-in nature of Memento. Like everything's like a physical phone book. those
Hmm.
physical photographs, writing on slips of paper, shoving them into pockets. That feels so good to watch on screen, especially in a digital age where I appreciate less clutter, but I miss some of that physicality.
Yeah, I'm actually fine we skipped that question because it's like not even close to an
Yeah,
answer. Of course, Memento would not work
Yeah.
with
right,
cell
right.
phones. It's like not even worth getting into.
It's just constantly
Uh,
video blogging his life so he doesn't
Yeah,
forget anything.
yeah, it's a whole other thing.
all
Yeah.
right,
The
Chris, where
movie
are you
really is.
going? Where are you going with where you still have plenty of track, but like you haven't taken your full room yet. You still got that hanging out. You still have some time, but we're gonna be at the end of season two before you know it.
The end of season 2 is going to sneak up on me before I know it. Luckily, we have plenty of pods between now and then. I did have my eyes open for potential for a room in these two films. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
Mm.
What I have right now is a really tough choice before me. I have a really big prop from Oppenheimer that would be fun to have in the
Yep.
space, and a really small prop from Memento. And I think I'm gonna go small. Memento is definitely closer to my heart. I'm gonna go there. Um, I want the homemade tattoo kit,
Yeah.
Oh.
right? Fashioned out of one of those pens. He breaks the ink. He fashions the needle to the end of the pen. He's doing the leg tattoo right there in the hotel room. So I want a little display case with all of that. I want the ink.
Yep.
I want the pen. I want the needle in it. The tape. What a cool little tactile
Yeah.
prop.
I love
Nice.
that. Those are some of my favorite shots in the film as well. Just like consistently great framing of him on the bed and
Hmm.
applying
Carrying
the
the phone,
tattoos. Yeah.
carrying the phone around the hotel room as he
Hmm.
talks was like so. To your point, Randy, like tactile. You could like feel this movie. You can remember what that felt like, the weight of
Yeah.
that phone in your hand.
And with his two perfect little cuts that I can only assume they copied on Lost with Jack Shephard in the pilot. I think he has those exact same little cuts across his face. And that was just a couple of years later, really.
Whoa,
Yeah.
great pull. I love the idea that
But
somebody was like a Memento fan and was like, you know what we should do?
You'd also
yeah,
have to include the paper bag with it says like shave your leg on it because that's the
yes,
handwriting he identified. Is
absolutely.
like, why is my handwriting on this? Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great pull.
Guy Pearce looks cool in this movie.
Always.
He's in like this endless feedback loop with Brad Pitt.
Hmm.
It's like you can tell like they partly wanted like Brad Pitt for this and like you've got like the Fight Club influence, but then like you get Memento. But then by the time Ocean's 11 comes out, I feel like you're seeing some Guy Pearce and Brad Pitt in that movie.
Mm,
I think they fell into a little early 2000s feedback loop of just like coolness. Props to both of those guys.
I like
big
that
time.
take. I like a podcast to talk about Brad Pitt and Guy Pearce and that comparative. That's fun.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. So what do I take? Uh, I'm between two things, but I think my answer is pretty clear. My runner-up that I am not going to take. I just kind of wanted those like really highly stylized like welding safety goggles. I don't know if they were
Mm,
actually period specific. They felt like
Hmm.
probably kind of a stylized prop inspired by like the actual pieces. Those looked really cool. But I don't think I'd actually wear them. And I'm a literature guy. I defended this scene a few minutes ago. I want Oppenheimer's copy of the Bhagavad Gita
nice.
in the Sanskrit, uh, so I can think back to that scene and that quote.
Great pick.
Great, great pick. Yeah, you know what the big prop from Oppenheimer was going to be, right?
The gadget, of course.
Watching them like piece this thing together,
Hmm.
Yeah.
brilliant, really
That was
beautiful.
a runner up
Yeah.
for favorite shot of him just in the tower, just him and it face to face.
Or even
Yeah,
like the partially constructed bomb as they're like adding each new cell.
that's what I was referring to.
Yeah,
Watching
yeah,
them
yeah.
piece this thing together like a puzzle. Like I would want it to be like very geometric and be able to take it
Mm,
apart in my prop cave and put it back
Yeah,
together.
yeah, you recently took the puzzle box from Glass Onion, so I can see the patterns for sure.
Exactly right.
fair. Fair.
Thank you. Yeah, too big for the cave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair.
Although the glass jars with the filling with marbles could have been cool. The large
Mm,
wasteful
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
could have been nice.
yeah, great visual.
All right. I mean, we did it. I think we have
Whew.
we've talked Nolan. We're not done talking Nolan on this podcast in general. I think that maybe there's a world where Bill becomes our Nolan guy, the way
Oh,
Dr.
please.
John is our Lost guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a filmography to continue to explore here, and he's only going to keep making great films, right? As Randy
Mhm.
already highlighted, we've got a big one coming down the pipe. So, Podlings, look out for the future when we have Bill George back on the pod to talk more Nolan.
Listen, I've got to make a
Yes.
confession to you guys. I've never gotten around to watching one of the most beloved Nolan films. Your jaws are going to drop.
Don't say it.
I've never watched The Prestige.
No. Wow.
So
Oh,
maybe that's the one.
book it. Book it right now.
That's before the end of season 2. That needs to happen between now and end of year.
In.
Yeah.
In.
What a great film.
Yeah.
So good.
It's one of those that's been on my list forever because I know I'm gonna love it and I just keep not getting to it.
Oh,
So
we'll get you to it.
What was the other magician movie that came out around the same time?
That was the one with Ed Norton and
Ed
Paul
Norton.
Giamatti.
Yeah.
God, I'm blanking on the name right now.
It was one of those like Ashton Kutcher, Natalie Portman, slash
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis type things. Same movie comes out, two different
Yeah, it's like a
approaches.
deep impact Armageddon situation, Ants
yeah.
Bugs Life, just one of those mirror
Yeah. I don't
situations.
know how I haven't watched The Prestige because my guy David Bowie's there and everything, but
Oh, he's so good as Nikolai Tesla. Come on, you
Yeah.
gotta see the
Yeah, it's so
Prestige.
good. Volcano and Dante's Peak. I would like to keep
Another
doing
good
this
pick.
exercise too.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
wow.
All right. So again, Podlings, more of this to look forward to in the future, but we're not quite done here tonight. Um, because we need to recognize our latest honorary Podling. Randy, could you do the honors formally, please, sir?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, we've recently started a tradition of inviting honorary podlings into our Hall of Fame. These might be fictional characters. We recently admitted everyone's favorite character from pop culture, which is the father of uh, which is the father of the Stouffer Boys in the
Thank you.
1997 family classic Wild America. Sorry, there, as I struggled to remember their last name. A troubled dad who is ready and coachable and ready to learn how to be more emotionally vulnerable with his kids. But we also honor great artists. We recently welcomed Andre 3000 in as an official honorary podling for being kind of an artistic visionary with a unique view. And we are proud to now welcome Christopher Nolan, someone Chris and I both love, our beloved guest and friend Bill George really loves, and someone who's been bringing us incredible art for a very long time. And he is beyond worthy of this honor. I'm sure this is going to mean more to him even than those Academy Awards, for sure.
Yeah, I'm certain he's going to have to move something off the mantle to make room for centering his media lit honorary podling plaque.
Mm.
Yeah,
But no,
we'll let you make your own imaginary prop cave. I'm just saying, Chris,
Chris,
we're here.
Come on the show, friend of the show.
friend of the show. Yeah, he is, whether he knows it or not, a podling in our hearts forever. Welcome, Christopher Nolan.
Beautiful. Well, we've made it to the end. We've done our extra credit. Bill, it's always such a pleasure to chat with you. The conversations are just always like elevated. We get into the nitty-gritty of films, and it's a total treat. And I'm always inspired to watch more movies. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you both for having me. Huge fan, so I'm glad to join anytime. I'm gonna hold you to the prestige. We're doing that.
I'm in.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a blast. Just as always.
Well, stay tuned. Bill will be back. We did a little collaboration with Should I Go See It last year. I think we want to do it again this year. So stay tuned
Definitely.
for a
Nice.
draft in the future. And yeah, Bill, thanks for joining us, bud.
Thanks again.
If you want to hear more of episodes just like this one, you can find Media Lit anywhere you get your podcast, be it Spotify, Apple, or some other silly streaming service where you can find these internet radio shows. And we're also highly present on the interwebs. I'm not going to bother running you through all of it. Please just open up your favorite search engine. I'm sure it's Bing, and search Media Lit or Media Lit Podcast. You're going to find us on places like YouTube and Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook. think we're even still on the other one, for anybody else who still is. So come chat with us. We would love to hear your contrasting takes, especially for these two films. Nolan is a popular director. He's also a divisive director. I would love to talk more about these with you, Podling. So please find us on the socials, subscribe to the podcast, give us a review, even if it's a bad one. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to reach out to the Media Lit inbox at media.slash.lit@gmail.com.
Kris, thank you for always taking on the challenge of pitching the pod. But why don't you pitch yourself a little bit? What else do you have going on, and where can folks find you?
I am the co-host of this Media Lit podcast with my dear friend, the teacher, Randy Elaine. There's almost nowhere I like being more than in the classroom with you, sir. But I'm also the co-host of the Batman by the Numbers podcast. That is a once a month podcast that you can find on the Pop Break podcast feed for the popbreak.com. We've been in our world's finest era this year. We set aside the Dark Knight for a little bit. He's always shadowy in our hearts, but Superman had a big year this year and we had to celebrate. So that's what we've been doing over there once a month with rankings of performances, drafts of iconic characters. Most recently, we did our definitive Superman draft. Randy was kind enough to join us on that. It hit the Pop Break podcast feed just recently, and it'll still be live for you today. Listen as we draft our favorite villains and allies, super family members, action scenes, super films. We all know the best one is The Quest for Peace. So listen in. You can hear all of our takes on great Superman lore. Aside from those things, I'm an actor and a voice actor. I'm a father and a husband. You can find me doing those things on Instagram and Blue Sky at Chris_Ingersoll. That's Chris spelled like Kringle.
Perfect. And I'm your host, Randy Elaine. And you can find me by finding Media Lit. I'm always updating our socials. I'm putting out promos. And if you find us on any of those social medias, you'll find a link to me. I made myself findable there. I'd love for you to follow Media Lit first, and I'd also be honored to get a follow from you. But I want to give you some reasons to find us. I mentioned earlier in this podcast that I've recently returned to my job as a teacher. We were so busy this summer. We have so much content that I'm excited about. Our calendar is so full of content. I'm not entirely sure of the release schedule yet. So I just want to mention some things that might be out already or might be coming soon, depending on when this episode drops. Uh, but we are entering Emmy season when this airs. Emmys, we might have just had the 77th Primetime Emmys, or they might be right around the corner. Not only did I go on the pop break and do an interview with Eric J. Carlson, who is Adam Scott's stand-in on Severance, but he came and did an episode of Media Lit with us. We talked about season 2, episode 7, Chikai Bardo. Kris watched the biggest reveal in Severance history without having watched a single other episode of the show. We got a little behind the scenes info from Eric. It was awesome. We have a deeply indulgent episode devoted to the Friday night lineup on ABC's TGIF from the early to late 90s. That was just a total blast, full of clips and sounds and nostalgia. Um, Over on my other podcast, Pod of Doom, we are wrapping up our run on Black Sabbath. We've got some really cool guests in our final episodes. And when that project is over, um, Chris Ingersoll is going to join us over on the music podcast. That will probably be out in the world by the time this episode airs. But since I have not talked to my co-host, Justin Mancini, officially yet, I'm not going to drop that knowledge just now. And yeah, we've got another secret project we're dropping in September. So somehow I'm going back to work and we're getting even busier. There's tons of updates coming for Media Lit. So this is a longer promo than I usually do. I just can't contain my excitement for some of our upcoming projects. So thanks for being here. Thanks for sitting through that bonus promo and have a great night.
I am become death.